Chapter 266. Yes, boss, we can't accept these 200 strings of cash. Yes, boss, please take back your order. In the workshop, Yong Fu and Hua hurriedly agreed. 200 strings of cash was too much. It was enough to buy a small house in Chang'an. Haha, you don't have to refuse. Although I was the one who proposed the method of baking the glaze, you three have to figure out the specifics of the production. Therefore, these 200 strings of cash are what you deserve. I've already made up my mind. You can take the money without worry. Li Zishuan said with a smile. In his heart, he was lamenting the sincerity of these people. In his previous life, if a boss wanted to give a bonus to his employees, anyone who refused would become a fool in everyone's eyes. Li Zishuan chatted with the three for a while, asking if their families were in trouble and if their families were doing well. Then, he followed Faubert out of the glaze kiln. It was too hot in the kiln, and there was a lot of smoke and dust. On the one hand, it was the smoke from the fire, and, on the other hand, it was the dust from the sand. It couldn't go on like this. If it went on for too long, it would cause lung disease. Faubert, I'll draw something that can cover the mouth and nose in a while. Go find a tailor to make it. In the future, everyone who enters the glaze kiln must wear this thing to prevent the smoke and dust from being inhaled by the workers. After leaving the glaze kiln, Li Zishuan greedily took a deep breath of the fresh air outside. Then, he said to Faubert that it was necessary to wear a mask in this kind of workplace. Faubert asked curiously, "Young master, why do you have to do this? Brick and porcelain kilns have a lot of smoke and dust. The craftsmen have long been used to it. It's fine. Even if they're used to it, it won't do." Li Zishuan said decisively, "I call this thing a mask. Faubert, have the tailor make a batch. In the future, whoever enters the glaze kiln without a mask will be kicked out of the workshop. In addition, after the matter of the compass is settled, the glaze kiln will also need to be remodeled. Think of a way to reduce the smoke and dust inside the glaze kiln as much as possible. Young master, isn't this system too harsh? You want to chase me away if I don't wear a mask?" Only then did Faubert realize that Li Zishuan was actually serious. He couldn't help but be flabbergasted. "Just let them do as you say. If they don't agree, come and find me." Li Zishuan was too lazy to explain to Faubert about tuberculosis. He simply said a few words and left with a flick of his sleeves. Faubert looked at his young master's back and was speechless. He wiped the sweat off his forehead and prepared to find Taylor. Sir. Oh no, it should be boss. Boss, you're here?" Li Zishuan walked out of the small courtyard where the glaze kiln was located and wandered to the back hall, the headquarters of strange culture. In front of a stone table under a pavilion in the courtyard, little Yuer came to work today. She saw Li Zishuan at first glance and hurriedly ran over to greet him excitedly. In this courtyard, except for Ma Zhou, who took care of her, because of Li Zishuan, the rest of the people were quite cold to her. At this time, when she saw Li Zishuan coming over, she couldn't help but feel happy. It was like suddenly seeing an acquaintance after being abandoned in a strange place. "Ah, little Yua, how is it? Have you found a place to live? Are you afraid of living alone? Are you used to it?" Li Zishuan was thinking about the renovation of the glaze kiln along the way. Unfortunately, he had never been to a kiln in his previous life and didn't know how to reduce the smoke and dust in the room. Suddenly, his thoughts were interrupted by the crisp voice of a girl. He looked up and saw that it was Li Yu, so he smiled and said with concern. Speaking of this, he couldn't help but admire the independence of the ancient people. Children in this era generally had the ability and courage to leave their parents and live alone at the age of 14 or 15. It was not like the modern era where people in their 20s were still asking for money from their families. Of course, he was also in this category in the past. "Thank you for your concern, boss. Steward Fu helped me find a place yesterday afternoon. It's in this square, not far from the workshop. Steward Ma is also my neighbor." Li Yu heard Li Zishuan's concern and felt warm in her heart. She then replied with a smile. That's not bad. If you have any problems, your Uncle Ma can take care of you." Li Zishuan nodded and smiled. The tragic Ma Zhou directly became an uncle-level character. Li Yu smiled and nodded happily. Then she tilted her head and thought for a while and said, Yesterday was the first time I lived in such a big house alone. I was indeed a little scared at night. But I plan to wait until I earn enough money. Then I will go to the broker house and buy a maid to serve me. This way, I won't have to do laundry and cook, and I won't be scared at night. Lisa Schwan was speechless. This little girl really thought of everything. She just found a place to stay yesterday, and today she wants to be a rich family's young lady and find someone to serve her. Her imagination, her mentality, her ambition. He couldn't help but admire her. Hee, it's up to you. But you have to earn money first. Lisa Schwan mercilessly added another stab. Li Yu, who was immersed in her beautiful fantasy, couldn't help but be stunned when she heard this. However, she quickly smiled again and said, of course I can earn money. Boss, look, these are the 2 articles I wrote. Do you think they're good enough? I imitated the style of the news on the Tang daily. I also collected the information myself. I didn't make it up. Then Liu handed over a few manuscripts. Oh, from your tone, you seem to be quite confident. Then let me see. Lisa Schwan suddenly became interested. He took the manuscripts and said with a smile. Then he took a look and saw the title of the first article. Rich family's prodigal son became a monk for his lover. Seeing this title, Lisa Schwan suddenly staggered and almost burst out laughing. There was no other reason except that this title was very similar to a meme he saw in his previous life. It was a very famous title party. Title: Rich family's prodigal son became a monk for his true love. Content: Dream of the Red Chamber. Similar ones. There were title: Story of 3 women and 105 men. Content: Water margin. Title: Cruel: The shocking murder of a beautiful girl who was burned to death by a match. Content: The little match girl. What's wrong, boss? Could it be that little you didn't write it well? Liu asked nervously when she saw Lisa Schwan's strange expression. No, it's good, it's good. Let me see it again. Lisa Schwan quickly waved his hand and denied. Oh, Liu responded and then walked to the side, quietly waiting for Lisa Schwan's judgment result. Chapter 267. Putting away his messy thoughts, Lisa Schwan began to read the article seriously. Of course, it was undeniable that the title of Li Yu's article was very good. Compared to the later dynasties, the Tang Dynasty was more open. The common people liked to listen to love stories. Li Yu's title alone was enough to attract people to continue reading. After a while, Lisa Schwan finished reading the first article. He nodded, then shook his head. Li Yu was happy to see Lisa Schwan nod, but Lisa Schwan shook his head again. The smile on Li Yu's face froze. Boss, what do you think? Why are you nodding and shaking your head? Li Yu asked. Lisa Schwan glanced at Li Yu and said, I nodded because I think your article title is very good. As for the content, it's not bad. Not bad. Then does boss think that my content can be written even better? Li Yu immediately found the key to the problem from the 2 adjectives Lisa Schwan used. Hey, smart, Lisa Schwan praised, then explained, I can't deny that the story you chose is very attractive. It's clear from the beginning to the end, but in my opinion, it's not enough. Li Yu looked at Lisa Schwan curiously. Lisa Schwan smiled and led Li Yu to the pavilion. As they walked, he said, Brother Li, don't worry. Little fishy, don't be unconvinced. There's a reason why I said that. First of all, your entire article gives people the feeling of looking at flowers on horseback. Your description of the incident is very general, very broad, and very boring. This directly causes your entire story to lack a sense of immersion. You have a good topic, but you don't describe a complete story with characters and emotions. The readers will only feel like they're chewing wax. Li Yu held onto the stone table, lowered her head, and muttered, Is it that bad? Lisa Schwan sat down and smiled. It's not that bad. The reason why I'm telling you so much today is for your own good. Of course, more accurately, it's because I want you to earn more money. Do you still want to hear more? Yes. Boss, please say it. When she heard about money, Li Yu's interest was immediately piqued. The depression she felt from being defeated by Lisa Schwan was swept away. You little brat. Lisa Schwan couldn't help but laugh. If I were to write about this topic, I could write at least 30 to 40,000 words and publish it in the newspapers for 5 to 6 consecutive issues. You see, The part where the rich Mo Wuk and the peasant Shu Inglian met. You can write more about how Shu Inglian was at home and how she was bullied by the village bullies. How helpless and hopeless she was. Also, when Mo Wuk saw Shu Inglian's peerless beauty, how shocked he was. Of course, the most important part is the part where Mo Wuk stood up to save Shu Inglian. You must write in detail. Such an important part. How can you write it all in just 2 sentences? Your foreshadowing is all for Mo Wuk to act pretentious and slap the face. Pui, it's for the hero saving the beauty. Also, when Mo Wuk's father, Mo Yinshan, opposed his son's relationship with Shu Inglian, why didn't you write about Mo Wuk's conflict, self-blame, and helplessness? Shu Inglian couldn't be with the person she loved and jumped into the river in anger. Why don't you put yourself in Shu Inglian's shoes and think about her despair, reluctance, and tragedy? This is the best place to poke at the reader's tears. You have to write about it properly. Also, after Mo Wuk found out that the woman he loved had jumped into the river, the loneliness, sadness, anger, and finally grief. His heart was like dead ashes, and he went to the temple, shaved his head, and became a monk. You have to embellish this place. These are all words, they're all money. As a reporter, if you don't know how to embellish the word count, if you don't know how to write about a matter, then you won't be able to earn much money. Li Zixuan was talking nonstop to Li Yu about how to embellish the news and how to write one story as 5 stories. He completely forgot that he was the boss of the Tang Daily. If Li Yu really did that, she would be scamming his own money. Li Yu stood at the side and listened with her mouth agape. She really wanted to kneel down to Li Zixuan. What kind of boss would personally teach his employees how to scam their boss's money? Also, Li Zixuan's embellishment, it was the way to develop the story. It was really an eye-opener for her. It was as if the door to a new world, the path of the water god, was slowly opening for her. Cough, cough. At this moment, a light cough came from the side. It turned out to be Ma Zhou. He just came out to take a breather and didn't expect to see Li Zixuan giving a lecture to Li Yu. The more he listened, the more he felt that something was wrong. Wasn't this misleading the students? Hence, he quickly interrupted. Brother Ma, you're here? Li Zixuan looked at Ma Zhou's expression and knew that he had heard everything he said. He looked a little awkward. Hello, Uncle Ma. Li Yu remembered what Li Zixuan said to her before. If you have any problems, your Uncle Ma can take care of you. She went up and said sweetly, F***CK. Since when did I become an uncle? You were still calling me Stu or Ma yesterday. Ma Zhou had just taken 2 steps when he heard Li Yu's words. He instantly staggered and cursed in his heart. If it wasn't for Li Zixuan's quick reaction and raised his hand, he would have fallen flat on his face. What's wrong? Is it wrong for the little girl to call you that? Brother Ma, why do you have such a big reaction? Li Zixuan teased with a mischievous smile. Ma Zhou was speechless. What else could he say? He could only curse Li Zixuan in his heart. He was sure that Li Zixuan was the one who taught Li Yu this. Is there anything important that Lord Zhu came here today? Ma Zhou calmed himself down and asked. There's no hurry. Let me finish reading Little Yu's news first. There's still one more. Oh, Brother Ma, you came at the right time. Come and see what Little Yu's news is like. Li Zixuan passed the news article that he had just finished reading. Rich man turns to Buddhism for lover to Ma Zhou. He then picked up the other news article and started reading. Ma Zhou was helpless and could only be patient. He sat down and began to watch the news. F***CK. This little girl is stirring up trouble. Li Zixuan almost screamed when he saw the second news article's title. It was because the title was too shocking. It said, A woman in the wild, after her clothes were stolen by a man. Li Zixuan rubbed his nose. It seemed like Li Yu was going to go all out with this title. Sigh, I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. Chapter 268. A woman went into the city to sell a donkey and a goat. There was a small bell tied around the goat's neck. 3 thieves saw it. One of them said, I'll steal the goat. The woman won't find out. Another thief said, I'll steal the donkey from the woman. The third thief said, That's not difficult. I can steal all the woman's clothes. The first thief quietly approached the goat at a bend in the road. He untied the bell and tied it to the donkey's tail. Then, he led the goat away. The woman looked around and found that the goat was gone. She began to look for it. At this time, the second thief came to the woman and asked her what she was looking for. The woman said that she had lost a goat. "I saw your goat," said the thief. "Just now a man was leading a goat into this wood. We can still catch him." The woman begged the thief to help her lead the donkey while she chased after the goat. The second thief took the opportunity to lead the donkey away. When the woman came back from the forest, she found that the donkey was gone. She walked on the road and cried. As she walked, she saw a man sitting by the pond. He was also crying. The woman asked him what happened. The man said, "They asked me to take a bag of gold to the city. I was too tired. I sat by the pond to rest and fell asleep. In my sleep, I pushed the bag into the water." The woman asked him why he didn't go down and fish up the bag. The man said, "I'm afraid of water because I can't swim. If anyone wants to fish up this bag of gold, I'll give him 20 gold ingots." The woman was overjoyed. She thought, "It's because someone else stole my goat and donkey that God gave me happiness." So, she took off her clothes and dived into the water. However, she couldn't find the bag of gold no matter how hard she tried. When she climbed out of the water, she found that her clothes were gone. It turned out that the third thief had stolen her clothes. Under the pavilion in the workshop, Li Zexuan read the second article written by Little Fishy. A woman in the wild after her clothes were stolen by a man. He was lost in thought for a moment. There was no doubt that this news article was a complete clickbait. The content was completely different from what you would think when you first saw the headline. But behind this piece of news, there was actually a trace of philosophy. This way, the entire piece of news was instantly raised to a whole new level. This Li Yu's perception was not low. "Little Yu, who told you this story?" After a moment of silence, Li Zexuan looked up and asked. Li Yu replied, "I heard this from an auntie in our shop yesterday. The incident happened to a woman from her family. I thought that if this incident could be written, everyone might be able to understand a lot of things after reading it. For example, greed will always be punished. Don't trust people easily. Trust people easily, and you will have to pay the price." Not bad. You've come up with new trick for the news. Li Zexuan nodded and praised. His previous purpose of publishing the newspaper was to entertain the public and at the same time attract investors and make some money. He did not expect Li Yu to be able to draw parallels and trigger another function of the newspaper, which was to educate the public. Moreover, she used a very lively and interesting method to educate the public. This was really rare. This girl's way of thinking was always very unique and creative. Hee, thank you for the compliment, boss. So, boss, did I pass? Can I be a reporter for Tang Daily in the future? Li Yu heard Li Zexuan's praise and immediately beamed with joy. You passed on my side. Brother Ma, what do you think? Li Zexuan turned his head to look at Ma Zhou and asked, "I think it's okay. These two articles have already captured some of Lord Ju's essence. Little Yu is indeed qualified to enter the editorial department of Tang Daily." Ma Zhou nodded and smiled. That's good. Little Yu, you'll work under Steward Ma from now on. Your salary will be based on what I've told you before. The more you work, the more you get. Li Zexuan heard Ma Zhou's agreement and said to Li Yu, "Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you, Uncle Ma." Li Yu heaved a sigh of relief and cheered. Ma Zhou could not help but feel that he had aged a few decades in an instant. "Little Yu, you still owe me 5 strings of money before. You have to work hard to repay your debt." Li Zexuan deliberately teased. He did not care about that little bit of money. He said that purely to tease this little girl. I know. Li Yu pouted and said with dissatisfaction, "Ha ha ha ha. Brother Ma, how's the compilation of the dictionary going recently?" After teasing Li Yu for a while, Li Zexuan left the pavilion and followed Ma Zhou into the house and asked, "Lord Ju, the compilation of the dictionary is almost half done. It is estimated that it will be completed in half a month." Ma Zhou replied confidently, That's fast." Li Zexuan was surprised. He thought that the amount of work required to compile a dictionary was so huge that it would take at least 1 or 2 years to complete it. He did not expect it to be so fast. That's true. Crown Prince and King Wei have given us a lot of manpower and resources to compile the dictionary. Moreover, the dictionary that we are compiling this time is mainly based on the foundation of Shuo, Wenjiezi. We have also introduced pinyin and perfected the definitions of some words. In fact, the workload itself is not huge. That's why the progress is so fast. Ma Zhou explained with a smile. Oh, I see. Li Zishuan nodded thoughtfully. After a while, he asked, Brother Ma, how are things at Chitu culture recently? How many books can we supply to them every day? Ma Zhou was now one of the higher-ups of Chitu culture, so he was very clear about these things. He answered without thinking. Without hesitation, he replied, Recently, the printing department has hired a lot of new people. The scale has expanded a lot. Now, we can supply about 2,000 books to Chitu culture every day. The variety and quantity of books will continue to expand. Now, in front of strange culture, there will no longer be thousands of people crazily snatching books like when it first opened. Moreover, there are more and more people who believe in Lord Ju's prophecy that books are as expensive as scallions. Li Zishuan nodded happily and said, that's good, but the scale of Chitu culture is getting bigger and bigger. How are the other bookstores in Chang and City reacting? Did they do anything out of the ordinary? This, Ma Zhou heard and frowned slightly. His face darkened, and he said, In recent days, with the increase in the number and variety of Chitu culture books, the other bookstores' business has become more and more difficult. Some bookstores will send people to the workshop to talk to me. They also want to buy a batch of cheap books from the workshop and sell them. I did not dare to agree to this privately. I was planning to wait for you to come and make a decision personally. Of course, there are a lot of bookstores that chose to fight to the death. However, they always have many tricks up their sleeves. Pang Sigi recently caught a lot of people with unknown intentions around Chitu culture. Chapter 269. In the room, Li Zishuan listened to Ma Zhou's words and couldn't help but frown. He had expected that the promotion of cheap books from the strange culture would encounter many obstacles because he had touched too many people's cake. The reason why those people didn't do anything in the first few days was probably because they thought that the cheap books from the strange culture were only selling at a loss and wouldn't last long. But after so many days, the supply of books from the strange culture had increased instead of decreased. Those people naturally couldn't sit still when they saw this. Brother Ma, for those booksellers who want to buy from the workshop, when our production capacity is increased, we can give them a batch of goods. After all, our energy is limited. We can't sell cheap books to all parts of the Tang Empire by ourselves. We can give them a portion of the profits. In this era, apart from the Emperor, no one else would have a good ending if they tried to monopolize everything. Of course, even the heir himself couldn't just do whatever he wanted. He had to consider the opposition of the other aristocratic families. Li Zishuan definitely didn't want to make the whole world his enemy. Earning too much money was also hot. Leaving a mouthful of soup for others was also leaving a way out for himself. Of course, if there were people who didn't want to drink soup and wanted to eat meat, then Li Zishuan would definitely not retreat and wait for death. Yes, Lord Ju's words are reasonable. This Ma also thinks so. Ma Zhou nodded and said with relief. He was older than Li Zishuan and naturally knew more about the ways of the world. He was relieved that Li Zishuan could make this choice. This was because he was worried that Li Zishuan would make some unwise decisions because of his youth. Then, Brother Ma, do you have any good ideas for those people who have bad intentions? To be honest, other than strengthening the patrols around the strange culture, I don't have any good ideas for the time being. Li Zishuan sighed deeply in his heart. He didn't like this kind of scheming. His original intention of establishing the strange culture was to let the poor people afford to buy books. From the beginning to the end, he didn't want to fight with anyone. If he accidentally hurt someone in the process, then he could only say sorry. Lord Ju, the people that Pang Sigi arrested previously have been transferred to the Supreme Court. However, we didn't get any result from the interrogation. We also didn't find any evidence of their bad intentions. The current situation is that they are in the dark while we are in the light. We don't know their intentions and plans. We can only block soldiers with arms and water with an earth weir. Ma Zhou pondered for a while, but couldn't think of a good idea. He shook his head and said with a frown, "Then, Brother Ma, please keep an eye on the strange culture. If there's anything, feel free to find me." Li Zixuan patted his but an annoyance and prepared to leave. "No problem." Chongren Lane, Zhangsun Wuji's house. Old Master, there are more and more types of books in the strange culture now. The quantity is also increasing. Moreover, they don't show any signs of losing money. The supply of books is also endless. I estimate that the cost of their books is probably very low. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to continue selling at such a low price for so long. Now, there are already many bookstore owners who have gone to look for the manager of their workshop. They want to purchase a batch of cheap books from them and bring them back to sell. They want to make a profit from the difference. Wu Mengyang, the shopkeeper of Mingda Bookstore, was reporting to Zhangsun Wuji respectfully. "Yes, you are right. I have received news that Li Zixuan's workshop has made a paper machine. The paper production speed is very fast, and the cost of their paper is very low. Moreover, they have also mastered a set of cheap and efficient book printing methods. All in all, the price of their books is naturally low." Zhangsun Wuji's expression was indifferent, and one couldn't tell if he was happy or angry. He clasped his hands behind his back and took 2 steps forward before saying, "Go and contact Li Zixuan. Ask his workshop to supply us with a batch of books. Li Zixuan should give this old man some face. In the future, our bookstore will also sell books at this low price." "Old Master, are you just going to let it go like this?" Wu Mengyang was in disbelief. In his opinion, Zhangsun Wuji was the brother-in-law of the current emperor. Why would he be afraid of Li Zixuan, a mere county boy? "Huh?" Zhangsun Wuji's voice gradually turned cold. "What do you want me to do? Do I need you to teach me what to do?" Wu Mengyang could feel the coldness from Zhangsun Wuji. His legs trembled as he hurriedly said with a trembling voice, I misspoke. Please forgive me, old master. Please forgive me." Zhangsun Wuji snorted coldly and said, "Leave. I will take my leave." When Wu Mengyang heard Zhangsun Wuji's words, he felt as though he was pardoned. He didn't even bother to wipe off the cold sweat on his forehead as he hurriedly left. In the house. "Come in. How improper of you to lie outside and eavesdrop." Zhangsun Wuji sat on the stool, took a sip of tea, looked outside the door, and said indifferently, I can't hide anything from father." Just as Zhangsun Wuji finished his words, a 12-year-old boy immediately came in. He chuckled. "Chonger, take a seat." Zhangsun Wuji pointed to a seat beside him and said. It turned out that this boy was Zhangsun Wuji's eldest son, Zhangsun Chong. "Thank you, father." Zhangsun Chong obeyed and sat beside Zhangsun Wuji. "Chonger, you should have heard the entire story from start to end, right? Come, tell me your opinion. Do you think that I am weak like shopkeeper Wu?" Zhangsun Wuji poured a cup of tea for himself and said slowly. Hearing those words, Zhangsun Chong sat up straight. He knew that Zhangsun Wuji was intentionally testing him. "Father, I think that father definitely has your reasons for doing so. However, it is definitely not because you are afraid of Li Zixuan. The Li clan only rose up recently after Li Zixuan was conferred the title of Baron. In terms of foundation and strength, the Zhangsun clan has no reason to be afraid of the Li clan. As for why father chose to avoid them and chose to cooperate with them, I think that father must have other considerations." Zhangsun Chong replied cautiously. "You brat." Zhangsun Wuji chuckled. Then he shook his head and said, "Chonger, the matters in this world aren't as simple as what you see. It might seem calm on the surface, but it might be turbulent in the dark. If you want to be invincible, you have to know your enemy as well as yourself. You have to understand as much information about the other party as possible. Then, based on this information, you have to constantly weigh and analyze the situation before you can make the correct judgment. Do you understand?" "Father is right. I have learned my lesson." Even though Zhangsun Chong didn't really understand the meaning behind his father's words, he still nodded. Chapter 270. You really don't mean what you say. Since there's nothing else, I will tell you in detail today. Zhangsun Wuji knew his son well. He could tell that his son only heard half of it. Zhangsun Chong scratched his head awkwardly. You were right about one thing. Our Zhangsun family is indeed not afraid of Li Zishuan's family. However, Chong'er, you probably don't know that 3 days before Qitu Culture released cheat books, His Majesty had left the palace and personally went to Qitu Pavilion's workshop. Chong, do you still think that things are that simple? Zhangsun Wuji looked at his son and said, Could it be? Could it be that His Majesty has some shares in Qitu Culture? Zhangsun Chong opened his eyes wide and said in disbelief. Zhangsun Wuji shook his head and said, That shouldn't be the case. His Majesty has a lot of things to attend to every day. What he has in his heart is Tang Dynasty's vast rivers and mountains. Why would he care about a mere Qitu culture? However, I have received news that the Crown Prince and King Wei are one of the owners of Qitu culture. Furthermore, there is one thing that cannot be denied. The expansion of Qitu culture is something that His Majesty is willing to see. Father, why do you think so? In today's world, aristocratic families have a huge influence on the commoners. There are countless scholars that rely on aristocratic families. In some places, the commoners only know about aristocratic families and not the imperial court. His Majesty is talented and strategic. How could he tolerate them? On the other hand, due to the expensive price of books, it is hard for the commoners to have a bright future. I think that His Majesty wants to borrow Li Zishuan's hand to break the current situation and allow more commoners to be able to afford to study. This point can be seen from the few batches of officials that His Majesty promoted this year. As the Minister of Personnel, Zhangsun Wuji naturally knew more information than Zhangsun Chong. Thus, his analysis was more comprehensive and thorough. So that's how it is. Father, you have great foresight and skills. Zhangsun Chong was enlightened and praised from the bottom of his heart. Li Er's intention to weaken the aristocratic families was already clear. He had more or less heard about these things before, so he completely understood when Zhangsun Wuji mentioned it. That's not all. Half a month ago, Li Zishuan invented pinyin, and it was piloted in the Imperial College. The results were very good. The officials in the court also praised pinyin greatly. Not long after, the Eastern Palace and Prince Wei's mansion sent a total of 16 scholars to stay in Li Zishuan's workshop. They had yet to come out. Thinking about the role of pinyin in teaching people how to read and the establishment of Qitu culture and the secret support of His Majesty, I guess that Li Zishuan wants to gather the strength of these 16 scholars and use pinyin as the foundation to compile a book that teaches people how to read. If that's really the case, then Li Zishuan is really ambitious. Zhangsun Wuji relied on the clues he had in his hands and deduced layer by layer, as if he was peeling silk from a cocoon. He actually managed to reconstruct the truth of the matter to a close degree. If Li Zishuan was here, he would definitely praise, Brother, you're awesome. Tisk. Hearing Father's words, I suddenly feel that this Li Zishuan is really amazing. After hearing his father's analysis, Zhangsun Chong felt that Li Zishuan was rather fortunate. Of course he's amazing. Chong'er, you can interact more with Li Zishuan. Perhaps you can learn a lot from him. Yes, I will. Zhangsun Chong hurriedly replied. Actually, the network that Li Zishuan has now can't be underestimated. First, it was the Chung clan, then the Qin clan, the Niu clan, the Yuchi clan, and recently, there's a Li Zishuan. It's said that these few clans have close ties with Li Zishuan. This is also one of the reasons why I'm unwilling to completely fall out with Li Zishuan over a small bookstore. That lad is no longer the same as before. Of course, the most important reason is that the Crown Prince and King Wei are on good terms with Li Zishuan. On the other hand, Li Zishuan can also provide the Crown Prince and King Wei with a lot of support. Chong'er, you must remember that only when the Crown Prince ascends to the throne will our Zhangsun clan be able to prosper. To our Zhangsun clan, this is the greatest and most important benefit. Zhangsun Wuji sighed. At this moment, Zhangsun Wuji wasn't as powerful and influential as Zheng Guan in his later years. Those officials and generals that followed Li Er to conquer the world were mostly still in their prime, and Zhangsun Wuji wasn't willing to offend them easily. Although the illustrious bookstore had contributed quite a bit to the Zhongsun clan's monthly income, in Zhongsun Wuji's eyes, it wasn't worth offending so many factions for this bit of money. Of course, the most important thing was that Li Zexuan's actions were mostly in line with Zhongsun Wuji's intention of helping Li Chengxian secure his position as the empire's heir. This was the most important thing. This child will remember father's teachings. Zhang Sun Chong nodded seriously. It's good that you remember. Actually, even if we don't find trouble with Li Zexuan, there will be people who will take the initiative to find trouble with him. The strange culture will hurt the foundation of the aristocratic families. Currently, other than the royal family, only Wang Yu's Wang clan is on the same side as His Majesty because of Princess Tang. However, the remaining 5 aristocratic families aren't easy to deal with. The scale of the strange culture is still small, and they might not have noticed it yet. If I'm not wrong, when the Pinyin literacy book is released, there will definitely be people in the aristocratic families who will realize the threat. At this time, the position of the strange culture in the hearts of the commoners will also increase. When a strange culture becomes a huge monster, the aristocratic families will be completely awakened and start a full-scale counterattack. Zhang Sun Wuji nodded and continued his analysis. Zhang Sun Chong had a more direct understanding of his father's foresight and judgment today. He was full of admiration. He thought for a while and asked, "Then, Father, when the time comes, if the aristocratic families really join forces to deal with Li Zexuan, what should we do? Do we need to help him?" "Chonger, you don't know the background of the aristocratic families. If they really join forces, even His Majesty will have a headache. Our Zhongsun clan isn't a match for these 1,000-year-old aristocratic families." Zhang Sun Wuji shook his head and continued, "In such a situation, don't be the first to rush up to help. Although you might gain the goodwill of others, the risk involved will be greater. Currently, the Zhongsun clan has both glory and wealth. We don't need to take risks and only need to develop steadily. Chonger, you have to remember that we have to consider carefully before doing things like sending charcoal in snowy weather. Of course, it's best if we don't do it because we might get burned. You can always do things like adding flowers to a brocade. This child will remember." Chapter 271. Big White's hooves were nailed with horseshoes, so when it walked on the road, the sound it made was particularly loud, even covering the sound of the carriage's 4 wheels rolling. Inside the carriage, Li Zexuan rubbed his temples in annoyance. When he thought of those people who coveted the strange culture, he felt a wave of exhaustion for no reason. He was most annoyed by scheming against each other. He worked hard for the strange culture just to let the scholars in the world be able to afford to read books. He didn't think about how much money he could make from it. If this behavior was in the modern world, many people would definitely scold him for being an idiot. He didn't want to live a good life as a rich second generation and had to do all kinds of things. In the end, he even offended people. Why did he have to be so stupid? Li Zexuan felt a trace of regret at this moment. No matter what era it was, outsiders would always be attacked by others. The strange culture was an outsider in the eyes of others because it greatly lowered the price of books, causing many people to suffer losses. Some were direct, and some were indirect. The direct ones were those booksellers, and the indirect ones were those aristocratic families. There was no one he could confide his thoughts to. He could only bitterly bear it alone in silence. Li Zexuan half reclined on the sofa in the carriage, looking at the passers-by on the roadside with their families. Looking at the warm smile on the faces of a certain family of 3, he suddenly felt a little disappointed. A passerby. The sound of a zither does not ring. The curtain of spring in March does not lift your heart is a small window, tightly closed. My das horse hooves are beautiful mistakes. I'm not a ritter knee. I am a passerby. Right now, he was really like a passerby. He came in a hurry and left in a hurry. We are all passers-by in each other's lives. Li Zexuan slapped his thigh in annoyance. He wondered what Han Yushi was doing now. Although there were only less than 20 days left until the official wedding, Li Zexuan still missed Han Yushi very much. This was the inconvenience of the ancient times. In a modern world, there were not so many broken rules. There were many people who lived together before marriage, so who wouldn't let the young couple meet before marriage? Even if the two of them were separated due to unforeseen circumstances, they could still video call each other to ease their lovesickness. However, in this era, it was extremely difficult to make a video call. Not to mention optical fiber communication, he couldn't even make an integrated circuit board in a mobile phone or a computer. It had nothing to do with technology. It was just that the industrial foundation of this era was too weak. No technology could be developed overnight. It had to be slowly accumulated. However, if he couldn't make a phone or a computer, could he make some simple communication tools? Rural phone? It's too low class, and it won't spread far. The principle behind the most primitive telephone was not too difficult. It was just a metal piece vibrating due to sound, and the electromagnetic switch coil connected to it generated an electric current, allowing the transmitter and receiver to realize the mutual conversion of sound mechanical energy and electrical energy, thus realizing long-distance communication. If there were enough components and conditions, Li Zishuan could also figure out how to make a telephone by himself. After all, he had done a lot of research related to circuits in his previous life. He had soldered circuits that were dozens of times more complicated than this, let alone a simple telephone. However, without electricity and the corresponding electronic components, how should he do it? Electricity, I have to make electricity first. I can't always do things for others. This time, I have to do something for myself. As for the strange culture, I'll do whatever I want. I don't believe that Li Er will let the other aristocratic families go against the strange culture. San Bao, turn the carriage around. Send me back to the workshop. With this thought, Li Zishuan's thoughts were instantly clear. He immediately did what he said and shouted out of the carriage. Young master, what did you say? San Bao, who was driving the carriage outside, suspected that he had heard wrongly and asked again. Turn the carriage around and go to the workshop. Li Zishuan was filled with energy at this moment. The dispirited look on his face disappeared instantly. Okay, young master. I'll change the carriage now. San Bao was sure that he didn't hear wrongly. Although he was full of doubts, he knew his duty. He only needed to follow whatever Li Zishuan said. Whoosh! San Bao controlled Big White and slowly turned the carriage around in the narrow road and rushed back to the workshop. Zhao Song, I heard from Qin Ke that the compilation of the Tang Dynasty dictionary will be completed soon. What have the other aristocratic families done recently? Do they know about the Tang Dynasty dictionary? Taiji Palace, Sweet Dew Hall. Li Er finished reading the last memorial and stretched his arms and waist without caring about his image. Then, he looked at Zhao Song beside him and said, Your Majesty, this old servant didn't hear any relevant news. However, a few days ago, one of the officers of the Right Marquis Guard caught many sneaky people near the strange culture. After these people were sent to the Supreme Court, they didn't get anything out of the interrogation. There was no evidence to prove that they were sent by the aristocratic families. Zhao Song smiled bitterly. He was only a eunuch with slightly more authority. How could he find out about the internal affairs of the aristocratic families? Oh, it seems like there are still people who can't sit still. Whether or not these people are from the aristocratic families, have the people of the Supreme Court pay attention. It would be best if they could find out their background. Right, have Sun Fujia be in charge of this matter. Once the Tang Dynasty Dictionary is released, combined with the recent cheat books, the strange culture will definitely become a place of trouble. We will not allow those people to ruin our plans. Li Er's eyes were cold, and his voice was tinged with determination. Yes, Your Majesty. Summon Li Junxian. Li Er thought for a moment before shouting. Yes. A small eunuch stepped forward, clasped his hands in acknowledgement, and then withdrew. The hall fell silent. Li Er reclined on the dragon throne and took out today's De Tang Daily to read. Seeing this, Zhao Song obediently stood to the side, quietly playing the role of a handsome man, a handsome eunuch. Around 15 minutes later, a white-robed general entered. It was none other than Li Junxian. Paying respects to Your Majesty. Dispense with the formalities. We called you here to ask if there has been any activity from the great clans. Lier put down the newspaper and indifferently asked, replying to your majesty, based on the investigations of the 100 cavalry, the great clans have not done anything other than actively organizing merchant ships to join the imperial court's fleet. Li Junxian didn't know why Lier would ask this question, so he could only honestly report what he knew. Oh, these vermin of the country are truly insatiable. They actually want to use this southern trade to make a fortune. Lier deeply furrowed his brow. He was unhappy that the great clans benefited. After a few moments, he shook his head and said, this is also good. They won't be able to divert their attention to the strange culture. Junxian, pay more attention to Li Zishuan's strange culture and workshops. Yes. Chapter 272. Li Junxian received the order and left. Within the hall, Lier propped his chin up and pondered for a while. After confirming that he had not missed anything, he let out a sigh of relief and reclined on the dragon throne. He flipped open the Tang daily and continued to read the newspaper. Zhang Sun Wuji's previous conjecture was correct. Lier had indeed intended to use Qi culture to dig up the foundation of the great clans. If one were to say that the cheap books that Qi culture had crazily released previously were a hidden worry for the great clans, then the appearance of the Great Tang Dictionary would have a fatal impact on the great clans. This was because once there was a dictionary, a large number of literate people would emerge from all over the Great Tang. The demand for books would increase, and the children of poor families would be able to learn some knowledge by themselves without relying on the great clans. In less than 5 years, the number of children of poor families would far exceed the number of children of landowning clans and the children of fake landowning clans that relied on the great clans. At that time, the advantage that the great clans had in terms of education resources and manpower would be completely lost. From his perspective, Lier was indeed using Li Zishuan. However, to be used by the ruler of a country meant that Li Zishuan had value. Furthermore, Lier's use was not the type of use where he would disregard the life and death of the other party. He had always had a backup plan for the safety of Qi culture and the workshop. He intended to groom Li Zishuan and leave him for Li Chengxian. Naturally, he would not watch as Li Zishuan faced the 5 great clans alone. This brat actually advertised his compass in the newspaper. Furthermore, I heard that he even rewarded his own novel yesterday, praising himself. Truly shameless. Lier muttered to himself in annoyance when he saw the advertisement in the middle of a newspaper that was dedicated to the superior properties of the Qi Pavilion's compass. Others might not know that the legend of a mortal's journey to immortality was written by Li Zishuan, but how could he not know? He could only sigh in his heart. Li Zishuan's skin was getting thicker and thicker. Young master, we're here. In front of the strange interest pavilion workshop, Sanbao got off the carriage and opened the curtains. Sanbao, you go back first and ask Xiaoxi to pack some clothes for me. Also, tell my parents that I won't be going back for the next few days and will be staying in the workshop. Li Zishuan ordered as he jumped off the carriage. Sanbao was stunned for a moment before he bowed and replied, Yes, young master. I will go back and make the arrangements now. You can take the carriage back and send the carriage over later. Li Zishuan quickly added when he saw that Sanbao was about to run back. Thank you, young master. Young master, why did you come back? Li Zishuan walked through a few courtyards and, of course, passed by countless curious looks from the craftsmen and servants. He directly arrived at Falbert's office. Falbert saw him and asked in surprise. After all, Li Zishuan had just left not long ago. Falbert, I want to make something very important and I need some materials. I will write a list now and you can help me get some. I will be staying in the workshop for the next few days and will be staying in the Drunken Wind Pavilion. Li Zishuan went to a few tables and said as he wrote. On the way back to the workshop, he had already thought of the materials that he needed. Overall, they were all common materials and should be easy to get. Young master, what are you planning to do this time? Fubo was taken aback when he heard this. Then, his interest was immediately piqued. He walked over curiously and asked, After working together for so long, Li Zishuan's products were each more practical and unexpected than the last. He was now completely convinced of Li Zishuan's ability to invent. Unlike when Li Zishuan was building the curved plow, Faubert raised some doubts. Now that he heard that Li Zishuan was going to make something new, he only had curiosity and anticipation in his heart. There were no doubts at all. I plan to make something that transcends time. This will be one of the greatest inventions of the Han family in thousands of years. Li Zishuan paused and thought for a while when he heard that. No matter how much Faubert believed in Li Zishuan, his heart couldn't help but waver at this moment. Li Zishuan's words were too big. He saw that Li Zishuan didn't mean to explain, so he quickly came to the door and looked outside cautiously. After making sure that there was no one outside, he carefully closed the door and windows. Fortunately, his office was a standalone building with no outsiders. Otherwise, if Li Zishuan's words were to spread, who knew how much trouble it would cause? Young master, I don't know what you want to do, but please be careful when you speak. Be careful that the walls have ears. An ordinary man is innocent, but treasuring a jade ring will arouse the envy of others. If what you just said is spread out, it will inevitably cause some thieves to covet it. Faubert said with a serious face. I know. Thank you for your concern, Faubert. Li Zishuan shook his head indifferently. He was also a master close to the guru realm. How could he not be aware of whether there was someone eavesdropping around? However, he knew it well in his heart. There was no need to say it out loud. Faubert also had good intentions. Faubert, can you get these materials prepared for me? Li Zishuan waved his hand, picked up the list of materials he wrote, and handed it to Faubert. Faubert took it and looked at it carefully. Then his face suddenly became very strange. Because there was a material on the list, it was Faubert really couldn't think of what Li Zishuan would use it for. Could it be used to cook? Young master, these materials are no problem. I will ask someone to collect them for you immediately. A moment later, Faubert said to Li Zishuan, All right, thank you, Faubert. I will return to Drunken Wind Pavilion first. Li Zishuan stood up and prepared to return to his private courtyard to wait for Xiao Shi to deliver the equipment and Faubert to deliver the materials. Take care, young master. So, the young master has been busy making a compass for the fleet going south recently. Young master is really kind. Han family village, Han family courtyard. Han Yushi held her chin with her left hand and muttered to herself in the room as she read the latest issue of Tang Dynasty Daily. Han Yushi's wedding date was approaching. Han Lijing had been so busy recently that he couldn't keep up with the Li family's strong request. Li Zishuan's wedding this time had to be held on a grand scale. Han Lijing had been busy sending out invitations everywhere recently. Han Yushi was alone at home. Normally, she would ask the villagers who were going to the city to bring back a copy of the newspaper to read every day. She was not interested in the ancient literature at the front and the novels at the back. She only looked at the news in the middle. This was because she, who was ill-informed, could more or less find some news about Li Zishuan from the news. Young master is getting more and more knowledgeable. I heard that His Majesty promoted him a while ago. Now, young master has become a minister of the Imperial College. No, I should read more books. Otherwise, won't I embarrass young master in the future? Thinking of this, Han Yushi ran to a red cabinet in the room. It was filled with books that her mother had left for her. Before her mother was still alive, she had relied on these books to gain enlightenment. Later, her mother passed away. In order to take care of Tai Dan, she had sealed these books again. However, she did not know that Li Zishuan was also a dabbler in the knowledge of the classics in this era. Why would he care if she was knowledgeable? Chapter 273. Young Master, Xiaoxi has brought you a change of clothes. Li Zishuan returned to Drunken Wind Pavilion. About 15 minutes later, Faubert did not come to deliver the materials, but Xiaoxi came to deliver the clothes instead. Thank you for your hard work. Xiaoxi, you can go back after you put these clothes in the room. Li Zishuan leaned on the table as he recalled the knowledge of physics and chemistry from his previous life. Young master, Madam is worried that you will suffer here alone, So she asked Xiao Shi to stay here and take care of you. Xiao Shi will go back and bring your 3 meals a day. Xiao Shi hugged the bundle that she brought over and turned around to say, Did my mother really say that? Li Zishuan raised his head and asked. Of course. Yes, Xiao Shi went to prepare a room for you. Xiao Shi replied with a slightly red face. She then hurriedly turned around and carried the bag into the room. In fact, after Sanbao sent the news that Li Zishuan would be staying in the workshop for a few days, Madame Li did not think of sending a maid to take care of her son's daily life. It was Xiao Shi who weakly mentioned it, so Madame Li sent her over. Thinking of Madame Li's meaningful gaze and smile when she arrived, Xiao Shi was so embarrassed that her ears turned red. Boss, these are the materials that Butler Fu asked me to bring over. Not long after Xiao Shi went into the room, Song Xiaoxi came over with a bag. After the previous lesson, Song Xiaoxi's smile now had a tinge of caution. He was no longer as impulsive as before. Li Zishuan took the bag and checked it carefully. He then nodded with satisfaction and said, Very good. Not a single one is missing. Xiaoxi, you can go back now. It's almost time for work. Young master, I'm not in a hurry. I can stay in the workshop at night. Why don't I serve you here? If you have any orders, I can run errands for you. Right? Song Xiaoxi smiled politely. No need. I don't have anything to do here. I could do it myself. Xiaoxi, you should go back. Li Zishuan smiled and replied. At this moment, Xiao Shi finished tidying up the room. She came out and said, Young master, your room is ready. Thank you for your hard work. Li Zishuan nodded. Young master, then I will take my leave. When Song Xiaoxi saw Xiao Shi, he immediately reacted. At the same time, he hated himself for being so talkative. His young master was a beautiful woman. Why would he need his help? Sigh. When Li Zishuan saw Song Xiaoxi running away, he knew that Song Xiaoxi was overthinking. Li Zishuan wanted to call him back, but he thought better of it. There was nothing to explain. Xiao Shi, there's still a room on the east side. Go and clean it up yourself. I'm going to start working now. Li Zishuan picked up the large bag of experimental materials and walked into the room as he smiled at Xiao Shi. Oh. When Xiao Shi saw that Li Zishuan did not need her help, she replied with an "oh" and went to the other room to tidy it up. After all, she was going to stay here at night. She could not possibly sleep in the same room as Li Zishuan, right? Although she had thought about it before, but after transmigrating for so long, I'm finally back to my old profession. Li Zishuan placed the bag of materials on the experimental platform that he temporarily put together with 4 long tables. Looking at this simple laboratory, he felt a little emotional. As an engineering student, and one that specialized in engineering, he had soldered countless circuit boards in the laboratory. He did not expect that after transmigrating to the Tang Dynasty, he would still have to do his old profession. The difference was that his current laboratory conditions were even worse. Of course, the experiments he did were more basic and simple. It could not be compared to modern integrated circuits. Let's get to work. Today, I will make the battery come to this world more than 1,000 years earlier. Dear Mr. Volt, I'm sorry for stealing your invention. Li Zishuan rubbed his fists and rubbed his palms as he muttered to himself eagerly. That's right. What Li Zishuan wanted to make was the simplest volt battery. What? You think that volt batteries are too weak? Why not make a generator? F*CK. Big chess brother, it's easy for you to say that. You haven't even learned how to walk and you want to run away. Do you think that generators are that easy to make? You transmigrated to the Tang Dynasty. Why don't you try making one for me? Can you make one without 1 or 2 months? Li Zishuan wanted to immediately create electricity and then realize the next step of his plan. How could he use 1 or 2 months to make a generator? Li Zishuan watched the TV series The Myth in his previous life. In the series, Yi Xiao Chuan, who was played by Hu Gu, transmigrated to the Qin Dynasty. Because his phone ran out of battery, he made himself a hand-cranked generator. Of course, this was the scriptwriter's nonsense. In fact, that thing could not generate electricity at all. Okay, magnets existed in ancient times. The wires used were the gold threads from the clothes of the future Liu Bang's wife, Liu Ho. However, those gold threads did not have an insulating outer layer. When they were wrapped into a coil, it was no different from a lump of gold. The scriptwriter did not know that real generator coils were covered with enameled wire. Not to mention, to charge the phone, didn't he need an interface cable? Li Zixuan, who was a science and engineering student, was troubled by this for a long time. At that time, he also thought that if he really transmigrated to ancient times, when he needed to charge his phone, he should adapt to the time. Ancient materials were limited. What kind of device should he invent? Should it be a simple hand-crank generator or something else? What? You said that there was no signal in ancient times, so why did you need to charge your phone? You could use your phone as a video camera. Could it be that your phone could only be used to make calls? If there was some pornographic content in your phone, you could contribute it to the emperor. You might even have a lifetime of glory and wealth. After thinking hard and letting the dog stand him up on the internet to find a needle in a haystack, he really found it. In the year 1800, the famous scientist Volta invented the world's first battery, which was also the ancestor of modern batteries. He did not know why those idiotic translators in China would sometimes call it Volta and then Volta. Li Zixuan's mind was often confused when he was in middle school. Through experiments, he found that when a piece of paper soaked in salt water was sandwiched between two different metals, electricity would be generated. He soaked the blotting paper in salt water, stacked it with a layer of silver, a layer of blotting paper, and a layer of zinc. Then, he used a wire to connect the top layer of metal to the bottom layer of metal. He found that he could measure the voltage and current. This device was now called a voltaic battery. The principle of a voltaic battery was, when different metals came into contact with an electrolyte solution in pairs, the ions in the solution would form a directional movement and thus generate an electric current. Until now, the dry battery that we used was a modified voltaic battery. In the dry battery, a paste of ammonium chloride was used instead of salt water, a graphite rod was used instead of a copper plate as the positive electrode of the battery, and a zinc sheet was used as the negative electrode of the battery. Compared to making a generator, wasn't it easier to make a battery? Chapter 274. The materials used for the voltaic battery were silver, zinc, salt, and blotting paper. As long as they were stacked together, they would form a battery that could generate electricity. Then, were these materials available in ancient times? If you were traveling to the Ming Dynasty, congratulations, you would have all of these materials. You would be able to charge your phone directly. This was because zinc metal was first invented by China in the Ming Dynasty. At that time, it was called Japanese lead. It was first extracted from silver or imported from Japan. Unfortunately, Li Zixuan had traveled to the Tang Dynasty, so he lacked one material, zinc. But could a voltaic battery be made without zinc metal? Of course not. As long as there were two different metals, it could be made. The only difference was the voltage and current produced. The positive electrode material used in modern dry batteries was copper, gold, or silver was better, but that was for the rich people's flashlights, and the negative electrode material was zinc. Copper was also very easy to obtain in ancient times, unless you had the bad luck of 8 lifetimes and traveled to the Stone Age. The negative electrode material could be aluminum or iron. Yes, iron, which was cheaper than copper. In the room, no, in the laboratory, Li Zixuan was secretly glad that he had read The Myth in his previous life and had a lot of questions, so he had searched for a lot of information related to the manufacture of batteries on Baidu. Otherwise, he would not have thought of making a voltaic battery. He would have been a newborn calf that was not afraid of tigers and would have definitely tried to make a generator. Was he King lucky? Because in the Tang Dynasty, which did not have any industrial or electronic foundation, it was really difficult to make a generator with the theoretical knowledge he had learned from textbooks. Li Zixuan did not plan to make a generator at the moment. There were too many technical problems to solve, so he would do it in the future. He took out a specially made rectangular clay jar. There were 50 independent compartments inside the jar. Because the voltage and current of a voltaic battery were definitely not enough, it needed to be connected in parallel to increase the current, and then connected in series to increase the voltage. The crudest and simplest voltaic battery had a voltage of about 1 volt and a current of about 10 to 20 milliamperes. If the voltaic batteries in each cubicle had a voltage of 1 volt and a current of 10 milliamperes, then 50 voltaic batteries would be connected in parallel to form a battery pack. 5 of these battery packs would then be connected in series to form a power source with a voltage of 5 volts and a current of 500 milliamperes. Then, the problem of charging your mobile phone would be solved. P.S. If you plan to bring your mobile phone to ancient times, please remember this easiest way to charge your mobile phone. Of course, Li Zishuan was a soul transmigrator. When he transmigrated, he did not bring anything with him. The purpose of his battery was definitely not to charge his phone, but to power his communication tools. He often lamented why he wasn't wearing a suit and couldn't bring a computer with him. He could have brought a mobile phone with him. When he was bored, he could play single-player dodiju or cut fruits. However, there were also benefits of soul transmigration. At the very least, there were no obstacles when communicating with the people of the Tang Dynasty. This was because the official language of the Tang Dynasty was not Mandarin at all. It had a very thick accent. If it wasn't for soul transmigration, you would not be able to understand what others were saying. Li Zishuan mixed a small basin of concentrated salt water and poured it into each cubicle one by one. When all 50 cubicles were filled, he inserted the 2 ends of the bent iron plates into the 2 adjacent cubicles. Then he inserted the bent copper plates into the other side. The copper plates were the positive electrodes of each voltaic battery, and the iron plates were the negative electrodes. When the iron plates and copper plates were inserted into the cubicles, it was equivalent to connecting all the positive electrodes together and the negative electrodes together. As a whole, the 50 small batteries were connected together in parallel, forming a battery pack with a voltage of about 1 volt and a current of about 500 milliamperes. After completing the first battery pack, Li Zishuan took out a copper wire. It was a copper wire that was coated with lacquer. He used the copper wire to separate the positive and negative electrodes of the battery pack. Then, he covered the rectangular ceramic jar with a matching lid. Just like that, a simple battery was created. It was very convenient to use. He just needed to connect the positive and negative electrodes to the circuit. If he felt that the voltage was not enough, he could make a few more of these batteries and connect them in series. "Young master, it's time to eat." At this moment, Xiaoxi knocked on the door and shouted. The servant girl took advantage of the time when Li Zishuan was doing experiments to ask Sanbao to drive the carriage back to the Li residence to get dinner. After all, the food outside could not be compared to the food in the Li residence. In order to make Li Zishuan comfortable, Xiaoxi put in a lot of effort. "Okay, I'll be right out." When Li Zishuan heard this, his heart was filled with happiness. Compared to his previous life, he was doing the same job, but his circumstances were completely different. In his previous life, he spent his 3 years as a postgraduate student in the laboratory. Every day, he would enter the laboratory at 8:30 a.m. to check in, and he would leave the laboratory at around 10 p.m. Of course, he would have to check in again. The person in charge of the project would check his attendance every month. Sometimes, in order to rush the progress of the project, he would work overtime until 1 or 2 o'clock, or even overnight. To put it nicely, he was a technician who worked hard on the front line of research. To put it bluntly, he was just a worker, an engineering dog. And now, although he was doing basic research, he had a pretty servant girl to take care of his daily needs, and there was also a driver on standby outside. Li Zishuan felt that he was willing to be such a happy engineering dog for the rest of his life. It smells so good. What did Ani Zhao make tonight?" Li Zishuan walked out of the room and came to the main hall. Only then did he notice that the sky outside was almost completely dark. He sniffed with his nose and immediately smelled the aroma of food. Hence, he quickly walked to the dining table, picked up his chopsticks, and prepared to eat. Hey, young master, you haven't washed your hands." When Xiaoxi saw this, she quickly pulled Li Zishuan and said, That's right." Li Zishuan looked at his dirty hands and felt a chill down his spine. It was a big taboo to eat without washing your hands after an experiment. What he did today was just a normal experiment. However, if he did not wash his hands when he used poisonous substances in his experiments? Wouldn't he be in trouble? When he thought about this, he quickly followed Xiao Shi to wash her hands before returning to the table to eat. Xiao Shi, have you eaten? Young master, of course. Xiao Shi will eat after you finish eating. So annoying. Sit down and eat with me. You know that I hate these rules the most. Xiao Shi looked at Li Zixuan awkwardly. In the end, she still went to get a bowl of rice for herself and sat opposite Li Zixuan. Anyway, it was not the first time. A few months ago, she and Xiao He ate at the same table as Li Zixuan at the Drunken Immortal restaurant. Come. Eat a meatball and grow more meat. Xiao Shi. Thank you, young master. Chapter 275. Young master, do you want to take a bath now? Xiao Shi will boil some water for you. After dinner, Xiao Shi looked at Li Zixuan and asked. As the workshop often required the workers to work overtime, there were a few staff dormitories in the workshop. Those who worked overtime too late and couldn't go home, Chang'an City had a curfew, would sleep in the workshop at night. Correspondingly, the kitchen cafeteria of the workshop would close very late at night to prepare hot water and supper for the overtime workers. This was a benefit that Li Zixuan prepared for the workers after he took over the workshop. No rush. I still have to make some things. Xiao Shi, don't be busy. Go wash up and sleep. I'll go get a bucket of water from the well after I'm done. It's better to use cold water on such a hot day. Li Zixuan waved his hand and said, young master, you can't do that. You'll catch a cold if you bathe in cold water. Xiao Shi heard him and shook her head like a rattle drum. She was determined to disagree. Your young master has kung fu. How would I catch a cold? Little girl, go wash up and go to sleep. I'm going back to work. Li Zixuan smiled nonchalantly, then turned around and went straight back to his room. Young master. Xiao Shi stomped her feet in annoyance. The little girl sulked for a while before she got up to clean the dishes. Chirp, 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 chirp. The night at Drunken Wind Pavilion was very quiet and peaceful. A waning moon hung in the night sky. The sky was filled with sparkling stars. It was like the Milky Way laid on the green sky. A gust of night wind blew and rustled the leaves in the courtyard. It was like the sound of the waves or the call of the pines. Occasionally, the chirping of crickets could be heard from the bushes around the house. In the laboratory, Li Zixuan continued to make voltaic batteries. There was no TV to watch, no computer to play, and he couldn't fall asleep so early. It was rare to find a good toy, and he was addicted to it. He wanted to try connecting a few more voltaic batteries in series to see if he could do something. As the saying goes, unfamiliar the first time, familiar the second time. In less than 2 hours, he actually managed to create another 11-volt battery packs. In other words, he could now assemble a 12-volt, 500 milliamperes power supply. It was not easy at all. Sigh. I wonder if the archaeologists will be able to guess that this young master came from the modern era when they dig up the voltaic battery that this young master made 1,000 years later. Li Zixuan looked at the dozen or so batteries on the table and thought to himself, that's right. Oh, right. It seems like there really was someone who made the voltaic battery even earlier. Oh, so this young master isn't the first person to eat crabs. Li Zixuan regretfully patted his head because he suddenly remembered an archaeological news article he saw on the Tianyao forum in his previous life. The general idea was as follows. In 1938, Van Wilhelm Koenig, an archaeologist working in a museum in Baghdad, Iraq, announced that he had discovered a battery that predated the voltaic battery by a long time. Koenig claimed that this battery was made by the Mesopotamians as early as 200 BC. This Baghdad battery was made up of a 14-centimeter tall jar, an iron electrode, and a copper electrode surrounding the iron electrode. The iron electrode was also surrounded by paper soaked in grease to prevent it from coming into contact with the copper electrode. In the jar, Koenig also found traces of a mysterious organic substance. Later, someone made a replica of the Baghdad battery based on the antique. The same electrode material was used, and the electrolyte was vinegar. It was very likely that this material was used at the time. Through the measurement of modern instruments, It was proven that the Baghdad battery could produce 1 volt of voltage when the current was 10 milliamperes. This device can indeed be used as a battery, but what was the real purpose of the Mesopotamians 2,000 years ago? This question has always been an unsolved mystery. There had always been some unknown civilizations on Earth, such as the ancient Egyptians and the Mayans. Perhaps the level of their technological civilization at that time had far surpassed the 21st century society. Knock, knock, knock. At this moment, there was a knock on the door, followed by Xiao Shi's voice. "Young master, can I come in?" Xiao Shi said weakly. She cleaned up the dishes, took a shower, and stayed in the room alone. She couldn't help but feel afraid because this place wasn't as crowded as the Li residence. Tonight, there were only her and Li Zishuan in the entire Drunken Wind Pavilion. Sanbao naturally went to the staff dormitory. "And come in." Li Zishuan's messy thoughts were instantly interrupted by Xiao Shi. He regained his senses and replied, "Young master, this is ginseng tea. It's cold at night, drink some." The summer night was like water, and it was indeed a little cold at night. Xiao Shi came in and gently placed the tea tray on the table beside Li Zishuan. Although she was afraid of staying in the room alone, she couldn't possibly run into Li Zishuan's room for no reason, right? This little girl's face was still tender. Thus, Xiao Shi cleverly went to get a cup of ginseng tea and used it as an excuse to run over. "Thank you for your hard work," Li Zishuan said plainly as he connected the wires. Although the night was cold, his martial arts foundation was good, and he didn't feel the coldness at all. He didn't need ginseng tea at all. Furthermore, eating too much of this stuff would cause his yang to become stronger. Han Yushi wasn't married to him yet, so if he became a beast, would he have to settle it himself? "Young master, what are you doing? Can you tell Xiao Shi?" Xiao Shi moved a stool and sat beside Li Zishuan as she quickly found a topic to talk about. If she didn't find a topic to talk about, she could only stay at Li Zishuan's place for a maximum of 15 minutes before she could only return to her room miserably. "I can, but you can't tell anyone." Li Zishuan raised his head and looked at the maidservant. Xiao Shi had just finished bathing, and there were still a few water droplets on her forehead. Because it was summer, she only wore a thin, pink, low-cut dress. Li Zishuan was far away, but he could almost feel the temperature of her snow-white skin under the thin shirt. He glanced at it and quickly lowered his head, pretending to look at the wire in his hand with a serious face. It was the middle of the night, a single man and a single woman. Moreover, she was a young and beautiful little beauty who was about to mature. The atmosphere was too ambiguous. "Young master, don't worry. Xiao Shi swears to the heavens that I won't tell anyone, even if I'm beaten to death." When Xiao Shi heard that she had the chance to share Li Zishuan's secret, she instantly felt very excited. The innocent and naive her didn't notice the strange look in her young master's eyes. Perhaps it was because Li Zishuan, this big bad wolf, was better at pretending. Chapter 276. That's not necessary. In the laboratory, Li Zishuan heard Xiao Shi swearing. He couldn't help but chuckle. "In the future, if someone uses your life to threaten you and tell you that I made this, Xiao Shi, you must protect your life first. The things that I made are not as precious as your life. Do you hear me? Young master." Xiao Shi's bright eyes sparkled. The little girl was really touched. Cough, cough. Li Zishuan couldn't stand Xiao Shi's gaze and quickly looked away. He coughed and said, "Actually, I am only doing a small experiment. The goal is to create a new type of energy. Air, it can't be considered a new type of energy. This thing already exists in the natural world." "Young master, what are you talking about? What is a new type of energy? What is the natural world?" Xiao Shi's emotions gradually calmed down after listening to Li Zishuan's explanation. However, when she suddenly heard so many new terms, she was a little confused and couldn't help but ask. "Air, energy is..." "Xiao Shi, you can understand energy as doing things. Apui, it is the ability to do things. For example, I am strong in martial arts. I can lift a few hundred kilograms of rock with one hand because I have a lot of energy in my body. Also, why can firewood boil water and cook rice? That is because there is energy in firewood too. Do you understand? Lisa Schwan had a headache when he heard these questions, but he still explained patiently. Oh, Xiaoxi understands now. According to what young master said, Xiaoxi also has energy in her body because Xiaoxi can cook and take care of young master. Xiaoxi held her chin and thought for a while. Suddenly, she smiled. Hee hee, you're not wrong to say that. Lisa Schwan saw the little girl's bright smile and couldn't help but feel happy. He nodded and continued. As for the natural world is the environment that we live in. It includes the sky, the earth, humans, plants, animals, etc. The reason why I said that this type of energy already exists in the natural world is because the thing that I created is the same type of energy as lightning. Wow, young master is so powerful. You can actually create lightning. Then wouldn't young master be the thunder god of heaven? When Xiaoxi heard her young master's description, her eyes were filled with hearts as she exclaimed, "Cough, cough, cough." Lisa Schwan almost coughed up blood. He was so handsome. How did he become a birdman with 2 wings like Lazenzi? Cough, Xiaoxi. I only said that this thing I made has the same attribute as lightning. I didn't say it was lightning. This energy is much weaker than lightning, so I call it electricity. Oh, hearing this, Xiaoxi nodded her head. Then she smiled and said, "Even so, young master is already very powerful. Xiaoxi has never heard of anyone who can create lightning." Cough, of course you haven't heard of it. If you had, then there would be another transmigrator in this world. Lisa Schwan couldn't help but mutter in his heart. Then, young master, you said that the electricity you created is a type of energy. But what can this energy be used for? Xiaoxi looked at the strangely shaped ceramic jars on the table and asked curiously. Good question. Lisa Schwan looked at Xiaoxi with admiration and smiled. There are many uses for electricity. It can generate heat to boil water and cook rice. It can also replace candles to light up the entire house at night. It can also make machines move. If we use electricity on a horse carriage, the carriage might not even need a horse in the future. It can move on its own and even run faster than a horse. Wow, young master, is this electricity really so magical? Of course, but to achieve these functions, we have to create the corresponding tools. For example, if you want to use electricity to boil water, you have to create a tool to boil water. Then, you have to connect it to the tool to boil water. If you want to use electricity to light up the house, you have to create a type of lamp. It's not a lamp that burns oil, but a lamp that consumes electricity. Lisa Schwan explained patiently. Oh, Xiaoxi understands now. Just like when we use firewood to boil water, we have to create a pot first. Is that right, young master? Xiaoxi listened attentively. In order to keep up with her young master's thoughts, her mind was thinking very quickly. She smiled and said after Lisa Schwan finished his words. Yes, smart. That's it. Lisa Schwan nodded. Hee. Then, young master, we don't have any tools to boil water, nor do we have any lamps that consume electricity. What can the electricity you create be used for? Xiaoxi smiled happily at first. Then she asked doubtfully, Hey, we don't have any tools, but we can create tools. Xiaoxi, wait for a moment. Let me show you a magic trick tonight. A thought flashed through Lisa Schwan's mind as he suddenly thought of an idea. After he finished speaking, he ignored Xiaoxi's doubts and went straight out the door. Hey, young master, where are you going? Xiaoxi wanted to follow him out anxiously, but she could not catch up with Lisa Schwan's footsteps. She could only sit down alone and continue to wait. About a quarter of an hour later, Lisa Schwan came back with a bamboo stick in his hand. He took out a long sword, and with a few swings of the sword, there were a few thin bamboo strands on the table. Lisa Schwan picked up a bamboo strand of uniform thickness and placed it on the flame of the candle. He started to roast it carefully. After a while, the green bamboo strand turned into black bamboo charcoal. Lisa Schwan used a metal wire to wrap around the middle of the bamboo strand. Then he passed the other end of the metal wire to Xiaoxi and said, Here, Xiaoxi, take this. You will be able to see the lighting effect of electricity soon. Yes, yes. Remember to stay away. Don't let your hair touch the bamboo strands. Yes, young master. Watch carefully, just for a moment. The experiment that Li Zexuan wanted to do was the prototype of a third wheel. In 1854, Henri Goebbels used a carbonized bamboo strand under a vacuum glass bottle. It emitted light when it was electrified. His invention was the first practical use of an incandescent lamp. The light bulb he experimented with could last for 400 hours, but unfortunately, he did not apply for a patent in time. Li Zexuan skillfully connected the 12 batteries together. Then, he carefully connected the positive and negative electrodes of the battery to the two ends of the carbonized bamboo strand. After the bamboo strand was electrified, its surface instantly produced a high temperature and emitted a bright light. It easily covered the light of the candles in the room. The bright light shined on Xiaoxi's delicate cheeks and her snow-white smooth chest. Coupled with her slightly open mouth and shocked expression, the originally beautiful Xiao, she looked even more beautiful under the light. Li Zexuan was mesmerized. Ah, what a beautiful light. Young master, this light is 10 times brighter than a candle. Unfortunately, it only shines for a while. Xiaoxi excitedly exclaimed. The things that she experienced tonight had completely overturned her understanding. She would never forget it for the rest of her life. Cough. Why is this little girl becoming more and more charming? I almost went crazy. Li Zexuan, who was interrupted by Xiaoxi's exclamation, could not help but shake his head. After he heard Xiaoxi's words, he laughed in his heart. This bamboo strand is not placed in a vacuum, so of course, it can only shine for a while. But maybe I can make some light bulbs to play with in the future. Xiaoxi, do you like it? Yes, yes, I like it. Then young master will make you a light bulb that can always shine this bright. Ah, young master is so nice. Chapter 277. Young master, you're up? Xiaoxi will get some water for you to wash up. Early in the morning, Xiaoxi had just returned from the Li residence after getting breakfast. She happened to see Li Zexuan doing his morning exercises, i.e., sword training, in the courtyard. The little girl placed the food box on the stone table in the courtyard and was about to go get some water. Huh, no need. I've already washed up. Xiaoxi, come over and eat. Li Zexuan laughed and put away his sword. Then, he came to the stone table and sat down. After last night's experience, Xiaoxi didn't refuse and sat opposite Li Zexuan. She opened the food box and accompanied Li Zexuan to eat. Tsk tisk, that's more like it. It's so boring to eat alone. With a beauty accompanying me, my appetite will be much better. Li Zexuan glanced at Xiaoxi as he ate, and thought to himself proudly, Xiaoxi, how was your rest last night? Are you used to it? Li Zexuan asked casually as he ate his sumptuous breakfast. Xiaoxi purposely stayed there last night, and he didn't notice it at first. However, as time passed, how could he not notice it? Although she was a feast for the eyes, Li Zexuan still hardened his heart and chased her out of the room when he thought about how he was going to get married soon. It's okay. Xiaoxi blushed and replied. After she left Li Zexuan's room last night, she wasn't that afraid anymore. She laid on the bed, and her mind was filled with the image of Li Zexuan lighting up the bamboo in front of her. She couldn't care less about being afraid anymore. Young master, are you still doing an experiment today? Xiaoxi had also learned a lot of new words. Yes, I still have to do something. Do you need my help? Xiaoxi asked with her eyes sparkling. Not at the moment. Oh, although the questions for this exam were difficult, there were still quite a number of people who did very well. They're worthy of praise. Iron Egg, come over and give out the exam papers. Imperial College Mathematics Institute. Su Hongji held a stack of test papers and stood on the podium, summarizing the results of this exam. After Li Zexuan finished marking the test papers that night, he put them in the study room. Yesterday, he stayed in the workshop all day and forgot to give them to Su Hongji. Su Hongji waited at home for a long time, but no one came. Seeing that it was getting dark, he stomped his feet and went to the Li residence himself. After all, he and Li Jingma were very good friends. As a result, when he arrived at the Li mansion, He naturally did not meet Li Zixuan. He could only tell Li Jingma the reason for his visit. After fatherly understood, he was so angry that he blew his beard and glared at his son. Su Hongji comforted Li Zixuan for a while before Li Jingma calmed down. In the end, with Xiao He's help, they found the exam papers that had been marked in Li Zixuan's room. "All right, Mr. Su." Iron Egg quickly walked over, took the test papers, and began to distribute them. Taking advantage of this time, I will briefly explain the results of this exam. The most praiseworthy one is Meng Wenhao. He actually scored 101 points. To be honest, there were many questions in this exam paper that I did not know how to answer. Meng Wenhao was able to score so high. It is very amazing. Everyone, please give him a round of applause. Su Hongji stood on the podium and looked at Meng Wenhao, who was sitting below, and praised him. After following Li Zixuan for so long in class, Su Hongji actually learned to make fun of himself. His words were not as rigid as before. As soon as he finished speaking, there was an uproar. Whether the questions were difficult or not, the students below had the most right to speak. They were the ones who had been tortured and persecuted. Naturally, they knew how perverted the questions were. "Damn, Wenhao, you are so awesome. Too awesome." Wang Ming stretched out his hand and patted Meng Wenhao's back as he exclaimed exaggeratedly, "Lucky, lucky." Meng Wenhao was still in deep shock. He knew that he did well in this exam, but he did not expect to get first place. After all, after Li Zixuan took over the School of Mathematics, there began to be many masters. It was very difficult to get first place. At this time, when he heard Wang Ming's exclamation, he quickly turned around and said modestly, "Lucky my ass. You are such a hypocrite." Wang Ming curled his lips and said, "This is strength, not luck. Wenhao, you are too modest. When I asked you how the exam was last time, you said it was average. How is this average?" Zhang Ziren laughed and said, "Haha, Brother Ziren, I am sorry. I was not confident at that time." Meng Wenhao said with an apologetic face, "No matter what, Wenhao, congratulations to you for coming in first place. But I will not give up. Next time, I will surpass you." Shurqing smiled at Meng Wenhao, but there was still a bit of unwillingness in his eyes. "Yes, I will not give up. Wenhao, you have to be careful. Next time, I may surpass you." Zhang Ziren echoed, "Haha, I did not expect Meng Wenhao to be so good. This school of mathematics is getting more and more interesting." When Li Tai heard that Meng Wenhao got 101 points, he could not help but be a little surprised. But that was all. As a prince, how could he make a fuss over such a small matter like the others? The top students in the front row were encouraging each other, but the bottom students in the back row were naturally in a different situation. F*CK, that's amazing. Meng Wenhao is too awesome. Ching Chumo opened his eyes wide and excitedly slammed the table. "Damn, Meng Wenhao is amazing. Mr. Su, I want to change seats. I want to change seats. I want to change seats next to Meng Wenhao." When Sun Zifen heard that someone got 101 points, he almost knelt down. The little fatty rolled his eyes and shouted. In fact, he was bitter in his heart. He almost got 0 points in this exam. Next to him was a group of idiots who did not know anything. He could not copy even if he wanted to. "Damn, I also want to change seats next to Meng Wenhao." Ching Chumo immediately reacted and shouted. He and Sun Zifan grew up playing together. They dug out birds' nests together, peeped at Widow Wang in the east of the city, and smashed other people's latrines together. How could this little fatty's cunning mind be hidden from him? "I also want to change seats. I also want to change seats." The hedonistic second generations who had been transferred to the mathematics school with Sun Zifen all reacted and scrambled to be the first to shout. Sun Zifen disliked his teammates for cheating him, and they also thought so. Ahem, silence, silence. Su Hongji was originally gratified when he heard Shurqing and the other students encouraging each other. He did not expect that in the blink of an eye, the group of students behind him wanted to change seats. Perhaps this was the difference between a top student and a bottom student. Don't even think about changing seats. Let's wait for Dr. Li. Oh, it should be Li Sai now. When he comes back, you guys go and tell him. Now I'll talk about the other students. Second place, Bruiser, 91 points. Third place, Li Tai, 90 points. Fourth place, Kashir Qing, 85 points. Chapter 278. Fifth from the bottom, Song Tianyu, 15 points. Fourth from the bottom, Duan Wenba, 12 points. Third from the bottom, by Han Yuan, 8 points. Second from the bottom, Jiang Wenchang, 5 points. Last place, Kong Chuansuan, 0 points. On the podium, Su Hongji announced the results of the last 5 students. Without a doubt, the last 5 were all students who had just been transferred over. Below the podium, Cheng Chumo was trying to hold back his laughter as he listened. His shoulders were shaking, especially when he heard that Kong Chuansuan, who was in the last place, had scored 0 points. He finally couldn't hold it in any longer. Ha! The rich second-generation heirs behind Cheng Chumo were all spitting fire in their eyes. They glared at Cheng Chumo and wanted to fight it out with him. Silence. Cheng Chumo, what are you laughing at? Tell everyone, how many points did you get? Su Hongji slapped the table, glared at Cheng Chumo, and said angrily, Cheng Chumo immediately stopped talking. Extreme joy begets sorrow. Extreme joy begets sorrow. Quick, tell everyone, how many points did you get? Su Hongji urged. I got 38 points. Cheng Chumo scratched his head and felt a little embarrassed. Yes, you didn't see wrong. This guy knows how to be embarrassed now. Because if you exclude the people who had just arrived, he would probably be in the last place. Wow. The legend of a mortal's journey to immortality has updated 15 chapters today. Can this leather knight write so quickly? Jin Yu Academy. Meng Tianhua looked at the Tang daily that he had just bought and couldn't help but exclaim. Yeah, doesn't this guy need to think before he writes a novel? How can he write so much in a day? Liao Feichen frowned and was a little puzzled. With different identities, the perspective of a problem would naturally be different. In the past, both of them were fans of a mortal's legend of a mortal's journey. Back then, if they saw so many updates in a mortal's journey, their first reaction would definitely be surprise and joy. Now that they were authors, they naturally had to look at problems from the perspective of competitors. Little brother, I only managed to write 8 chapters after putting in so much effort yesterday. Meng Tianhua had a bitter expression as he said in defeat. You've already written 8 chapters, but I only wrote 5 yesterday. Liao Feichen almost cried when he heard what his classmates said. Ha, Tianhua. Feichen, you don't have to be like this. Hua Hongyi, who was watching from the side, shook his head and said with a smile, based on my guess, this pie shouted definitely didn't write so many chapters in a single day. I'm guessing that he saved some of them beforehand, and then when someone rewarded him, he released all of them in one go. So the two of you don't have to be so dejected. If Li Zishuan were here, he would definitely give Hua Hongyi a thumbs up. As an ancient person, Hua Hongyi actually knew about the saving of chapters theory. It was really rare. Yeah, Hongyi's analysis is pretty good. The 15 chapters that were released today must have been written by Leather Knight in advance. Meng Tianhua's eyes lit up as he said excitedly, That's right, that might really be the case. Sai, let's not talk about it anymore. I have to hurry up and study A Mortal's Journey. Then, I have to quickly write my novel to 30,000 words and show it to the manager of Datong Daily. Liao Feichen patted the stone table and agreed. After that, he hurriedly got up and prepared to continue writing his novel. I'm going to. I still need 10,000 words to send it to Datong Daily's editorial department. Meng Tianhua didn't want to be left behind. He took the newspaper and slipped away. Hua Hongyi shook his head speechlessly. Manager son, do you have any compasses at Curious Pavilion today? Yeah, do you have any today? You didn't have any yesterday, but you can't possibly not have any today, right? Yeah, I say, can't you guys hire more people to be compasses? Yeah. We're all waiting to use them. The fleet is about to set sail. Ever since Datong Daily did a round of publicity for Curious Pavilion's compasses, and taking advantage of the popularity of the fleet heading south, countless merchant ship owners came to Curious Pavilion to buy compasses. Unfortunately, The first batch of compasses had already been pre-ordered by the imperial court and Wang Renbiao. So every time they came, there was no stock. Today, when the East Market opened, they gathered here and asked Sun Huayuan. Sun Huayuan looked at the group of people waving their money in front of him to buy compasses. He was both happy and depressed. Although Curious Pavilion had some compasses today, they didn't have much in stock. Sun Huayuan's heart ached when he thought about how he couldn't earn money from all these people who were queuing up to give him money. Hee, we have some compasses today, but the quantity is limited. There are only 50 of them. Everyone, line up. The rules are the same as before. Those who have a membership card, line up at the member channel according to the level of your membership card. Each person is limited to 2. Sun Huayuan shouted to the crowd. Huh? Why are there only 50? How is that enough? Moreover, each person is limited to 2, and I alone need 10. A well-dressed merchant was dumbfounded. Yeah, there's so many people here. How is 50 enough? Why are you still talking nonsense here? Hurry up and line up. If you don't, you won't be able to buy any more. Yeah, I happen to have a blue membership card. I can cut the line, haha. What's a membership card? Some of the merchants who had just come into contact with Curious Pavilion didn't know what privileges a membership card had. After all, Curious Pavilion used to only make children's toys and Drunken Immortal. Many of the wealthy merchants didn't pay attention to these things, but after hearing the explanation from the people beside them, they immediately went to Sun Huayuan to apply for a membership card. Shopkeeper's son, I want a purple membership card. I want a purple membership card too. I want a gold membership card. These people who owned large merchant ships didn't lack money. When it came to applying for a membership card, they directly started with a purple membership card. Shopkeeper's son didn't expect that such a thing would actually spur so many people to apply for a purple membership card. It was truly an unexpected gain. Everyone, don't be anxious and don't fight over it. Recently, our workshop has been producing compasses at full capacity. In the next few days, the supply of compasses will definitely increase. Before the Imperial Court's fleet heads south, everyone will definitely be able to buy a lot of compasses. Sun Huayuan said to the anxious crowd as he asked the accountant to help them apply for membership cards. What he said wasn't nonsense. This was something that Li Zishuan had taught him. Under Li Zishuan's guidance, the workshop's current production model had been changed to an assembly line model. The supply of compasses in the future would definitely not be a problem. Really? That's great. Then I'll wait for 2 more days. Wait my ass. Who knows what will happen in the future? The sooner you buy, the better. You're right. I'll buy one too. Yeah, let's line up. Although Faubert said it like that, very few people believed him. Everyone was still very enthusiastic about buying compasses. Chapter 279. The day of the fleet's journey to the south was getting closer and closer. Anyone with a bit of foresight would realize how lucrative the journey to the south would be. Furthermore, they would be escorted by the Imperial Army, so there was no need to worry about their safety. It was simply a godsend opportunity. As a result, there was a rare shortage of manpower in all the major shipping companies. Notices for sailors could be seen all over Chang'an City. As long as you were good at swimming and didn't get seasick, you should hurry up and sign up. The ship owner would not only give you a generous settlement fee, but when you return from the southern trade, the salary would be enough for your family to live on for 20 years. The workshop was bustling with activity. Because some of the precise components of the compasses were previously polished by a few old masters, the efficiency was very low. Seeing that there were more and more people outside wanting to buy compasses, Faubert decided to organize the young craftsmen to learn from the old masters after consulting with Li Zishuan. Whoever could learn would be rewarded with 5 strings of cash on the spot. With a generous reward, there would be a lot of brave men. A large number of smart and skillful young craftsmen immediately emerged. The precise components they polished were no worse than those of the old masters. Just like that, with a steady stream of new people joining in and the advanced assembly line production model, the production of compasses continued to skyrocket day by day. On the first day, the 50 compasses supplied by the Curious Pavilion were sold out in less than a quarter of an hour. On the second day, the 300 compasses supplied by the Curious Pavilion were also sold out in less than an hour. On the third day, the 800 compasses supplied by the Curious Pavilion were finally not sold out. The market for compasses was beginning to reach saturation. After all, there were only a little more than 1,000 merchant ships going south. Furthermore, not every merchant ship owner was as rich as Wang Rinbiao to equip every ship with a compass. Seeing this, Sun Huaiyuan hurriedly reported to the workshop. When Faubert received the news, he immediately transferred half of the people from the compasses production team to produce carriages. According to Li Zishuan's previous plan, it was time to sell the carriages. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. While the people outside were preparing for the vigorous southward operation, Li Zishuan was also extremely busy in the Drunken Wind Pavilion in the depths of the workshop. Li Zishuan was already showing signs of going berserk. In the past 3 days, he had spent more than 90% of his time in the laboratory, sleeping there as well. After a few days of hard work, Li Zishuan had really created a treasure. Moreover, it was a rare treasure in the world. However, his current image was somewhat unsightly. Haha, I've finally finished 2 telegraph machines. Li Zishuan's hair was a bit messy now, and his eyes were sunken. This was a clear sign that he had stayed up too late. At this moment, he looked at the pile of devices on the table and laughed madly with a deranged expression. That's right. Li Zishuan wanted to make a telegraph, and a wireless one at that. The principle of wireless was very simple. The core part was the LC oscillation circuit, which was composed of an inductor L and a capacitor C to form a frequency-selective oscillation circuit, which was used to generate high-frequency sine wave signals. The radiation power of the LC oscillation circuit was proportional to the 4th power of the oscillation frequency. In order to make the LC oscillation circuit radiate strong enough electromagnetic waves, the oscillation frequency must be increased and the circuit must be in an open form. Although the principle was very simple, in this era, there were no electronic components that Li Zishuan could use. It was very difficult to make. There were many technical difficulties, such as the signal modulation of the transceiver, the production of the buzzer, and so on. Fortunately, Li Zishuan, who had been in seclusion for 3 days, overcame these difficulties one by one. After going through untold hardships, he finally made 2 wireless telegraph machines. Unfortunately, there was a problem that he couldn't overcome at present, and that was the problem of power amplification. It was also the biggest technical problem that had to be overcome in order to make progress in the electronic industry of this era, the transistor. The transistor was one of the basic components of a semiconductor. It had the function of amplifying current and was the most core component of the electronic circuit. Without the transistor, there would be no integrated circuit, and there would be no electronic products in modern society. In fact, the LC oscillation circuit needed an amplifying element, and that was the transistor. Of course, it could also use digital electric LCs, such as integrated operational amplifiers. Using this amplifying element through various signal feedback methods, the constantly consumed oscillation signal would be feedback amplified and finally output a signal with a relatively stable amplitude and frequency, so that the radio signal could be transmitted farther. Li Zishuan understood these principles, but what was the use of knowing? He couldn't make the transistor now, so he could only brace himself and try to make a wireless telegraph machine first. Because he had a glimmer of hope in his heart. That was, in ancient times, when there was no electricity, the space spectrum was very clean, and there was almost no interference. With a few watts of radio frequency power, it could be transmitted all over the world. The earliest wireless telegraph machines also didn't use transistors. At that time, the transmission distance was 250 meters, but there was already electricity in that era, and the space spectrum was not clean, so there would be electromagnetic interference. During the Liberation War, Mao Zedong was in Yan and Lin Biao Dong was in Harbin. They were more than 2,000 kilometers apart, and there were no relay stations in between. They were all directly transmitted through radio stations. At that time, the radiating power of the telegraph machine was only a few watts, and it could transmit that far. If it was in modern society, it definitely wouldn't be possible. Young master, don't move. Xiaoxi is combing your hair. Lisa Xuan was laughing crazily, but Xiaoxi was not happy. These days, Lisa Xuan had locked himself in the laboratory, and whenever he encountered a problem, he couldn't help but scratch his head. Ancient men were not like modern men with short hair. They all had long hair, so his hair had been messy recently. In order to maintain a good image for her young master, Xiaoxi spent a lot of time combing Lisa Xuan's hair every day. Aha, no need to comb. No need to comb. Come, Xiaoxi, try this young master's latest invention. Lisa Xuan only just noticed that there was someone behind him. He turned around, squeezed Xiaoxi's shoulder, and shouted excitedly. These days, he was always in a daze when doing things, and many times he entered a state of forgetfulness. If it wasn't for Xiaoxi taking care of him, he would have either starved to death or died from his own sloppiness. In the end, although he could still make the wireless telegraph machine, his situation would definitely be much worse than now. Young master, please wait a moment. Let me comb your hair first. Xiaoxi was used to it. These few days, other than taking care of Lisa Xuan's daily needs, she also helped Lisa Xuan with various experiments. She had failed many times in the middle, so she was no longer as interested in doing experiments as before. Okay, Xiaoxi, hurry up. Lisa Xuan could only helplessly compromise. Chapter 280. Young Master, Xiaoxi can hear it. In order to test how far this simple wireless telegraph could travel, Lisa Xuan, Xiaoxi, and Sanbao started the test. The first distance was set at 250 meters, which was around 75 feet. This was a very important distance, as it directly affected whether Lisa Xuan's wish could come true. When he heard Sanbao's report, Lisa Xuan was very excited. He waved his hand and said excitedly, "Good, that's great." Sanbao asked Xiaoxi to walk another 20 feet away and see if she can hear the signal I sent. "Okay, young master, I will go now." Sanbao answered with a grin and then hurriedly ran out. After a while, Sanbao ran back and said, "Young master, Xiaoxi is in position. You can send a signal now." "Okay, Sanbao, quickly go over." After Lisa Xuan finished speaking, he walked in front of the telegraph machine and gently pressed the button on the transmitter, casually sending out a string of codes. Beep, 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 beep. Sanbao naturally ran back to Xiaoxi's side to check on the situation. He had no choice as he could not let Xiaoxi run around alone, right? After a few minutes, Sanbao ran back. However, his breathing was hurried and his forehead was covered in sweat. After all, running around in the hot weather was unbearable for anyone. "Young master, Xiaoxi can hear your signal." "Okay." Asked Xiaoxi to walk another 50 feet. Lisa Xuan was so excited that he was about to explode. This was the first time he felt so close to modern technology since he transmigrated. Sanbao was instantly dumbfounded when she heard that. The addition of 750 feet, 200 feet, and 500 feet would be a total of 1,450 feet. A round trip would be about 2 miles. Furthermore, according to Lisa Xuan's words, the journey would only get further and further. Sanbao felt like she was about to kneel down. And what happened? Lisa Xuan was only thinking about the telegraph. His IQ and EQ were basically zero. He did not notice Sanbao's expression. He only felt that Sanbao was still in the house, so he could not help but ask curiously. His casual question almost scared Sanbao out of his wits. Sanbao thought that his young master was dissatisfied with him. He was living such a comfortable life in the Li family, and he was not willing to make his master unhappy over such a small matter and be chased out of the house. "No, I'm fine. Young master, I'll go now." Sanbao responded and ran out hurriedly. He thought to himself, "Isn't it just running? I'll do it." 750 zhang, 950 zhang, 1 kilometer, 2.5 kilometers, 3 kilometers. In 3 hours, the effective distance of the telegraph went from 750 zhang to 3 kilometers. Xiaoxi's position also went from the side of Drunken Wind Pavilion to outside of an Lane, then to Qinren Lane, and finally to Yongla Lane. She was only a few dozen steps away from the Li family. Along the way, this beautiful young lady who was carrying a big box attracted the attention of the passers-by. Moreover, there were dee-dee, dee-dee-dee-dee sounds coming from the box, making the onlookers exclaim in surprise. Although the crowd did not know what the big box was, it did not stop them from watching. Thus, many people followed behind Xiaoxi to watch the show. The crowd became more and more lively. When they arrived at Yongla Lane, Xiaoxi was already surrounded by a circle of people. Li Zixuan saw this delightful result, and his heart was filled with joy. However, San Bao did not feel any joy. At this moment, he was as tired as a dog. He opened his mouth wide and panted heavily. His clothes were drenched in sweat, as if he had just been fished out of the water. His 2 hands kept fanning himself, but this little amount of energy was of no use. The sweat on his face was still dripping down like rain. Young master, Xiaoxi received the signal. San Bao ran in and said with difficulty, "Good. It's 3 miles now. San Bao, let Xiaoxi walk another 100 feet away." San Bao, what's wrong with you?" When San Bao heard Li Zixuan's words, his eyes rolled, and he was about to faint. Li Zixuan reacted quickly and lifted him up and asked, Young master, San Bao can't run." "All right, San Bao, don't say any more. It's my negligence. Sit here and rest for a while. I'll get someone to call a doctor for you." Li Zixuan had already woken up from the excitement of the telegraph machine. He thought to himself, it's not good to be too immersed in something. This is called qi deviation. Xiaoxi, come here." Li Zixuan came to the front yard of the workshop and waved its Song Xiaoxi. "Coming, young master. You called for me?" Song Xiaoxi hurriedly ran over and asked. "San Bao is overheated. Bring a few people and send him to a shady place to cool him down. Also, get a doctor to take a look at him. Don't let him get a heat stroke." "Yes, young master. I'll go right now." "Hey, wait. Send someone to drive my carriage and go to Yongla Lane to find Xiaoxi. Tell her to stop for now and bring her back to rest and eat." San Bao was already so tired. Xiaoxi, a weak girl, was still working under the sun. She should be even more tired, right? Li Zixuan's heart ached when he thought of this. He quickly added, "All right, young master." Song Xiaoxi saw that Li Zixuan did not have any other orders. He responded and hurriedly went to make arrangements. He was envious of San Bao. Yes, he was envious. As a servant, he was able to receive such care from the young master of the house. In the entire Tang Dynasty, there was probably no other master who treated his servants so well. Li Zixuan brought a group of servants back to Drunken Wind Pavilion and ordered them to carry San Bao to a shady place beside the pond in the workshop. "Go get some well water to feed San Bao." Li Zixuan pointed to a servant beside him and ordered, "Yes, young master." The servant obeyed and left. Li Zixuan looked at San Bao, who had a pale face and cracked lips. He felt a little vexed. In his previous life, he had experienced a similar situation. Back then, one of the leaders of the research team would give you a task. It was considered light if you ran your legs off. You might even have to work overtime or even be criticized. This was the common saying, "The leader moves his mouth and the subordinate runs his legs." Some colleges and universities were really bureaucratic. Li Zixuan hated this kind of phenomenon very much in his previous life. However, he didn't expect that he would unintentionally do something that he had always hated. He really shouldn't have done it. "Why isn't the doctor here yet?" Li Zixuan frowned and asked. "Young master, Brother Xiaoxi has already gone to get the doctor. He should be here soon." The manservant from before came over with a bowl of cold well water and answered, "All right, feed him water first." Chapter 281. Drunken Wind Pavilion. A group of people surrounded San Bao. It was probably San Bao's first time being the main character. "Doctor, how is he? Is he all right?" Li Zixuan looked at the old doctor who was checking San Bao's pulse and asked anxiously. He had to be anxious. If San Bao had a heat stroke, it would be a serious matter. In ancient times, where the medical environment was extremely backward, there were many people who died from heat stroke. Even famous people and officials couldn't avoid dying from heat stroke. For example, Fu Zhan, the great scholar of the Western Han Dynasty, Su Shi of the Song Dynasty, Zhao Mingsheng, the husband of the female poet Li Qing Zhao, and Zheng Qinggong, the national hero who recovered Taiwan, all died from heat stroke. Lord Zhu, you don't have to worry. This young man is just too tired. Coupled with the hot weather, his body is dehydrated. He didn't suffer from heat stroke. As long as you give him more water and combine it with this old man's prescription, he will definitely recover. The old doctor put down San Bao's wrist and smiled. He was a doctor in charge of a medical hall in Any Lane. It was not far from the workshop, so he naturally knew some people in the workshop. As for Li Zixuan, he had met him a few times before. Phew, that's good. That's good. Li Zixuan heaved a sigh of relief. He then turned his head and pointed at a servant. You go and get the medicine from Dr. Hu. Also, go to Manager Fu to get us some money. Yes, young master. Thank you, Dr. Hu. Li Zixuan nodded and smiled at the old doctor. Hee, Lord Zhu, you're too courteous. It's my pleasure. Young master, I'm back. I even brought food. After getting someone to settle Sanbao down, Song Xiaoxi drove Li Zixuan's private carriage into the workshop. Xiaoxi hugged the telegraph box and carried a lunchbox as she jumped down from the carriage. I asked someone to get some ice in the house. Xiaoxi, go inside and cool down. Drink some ice water to relieve the heat. Li Zixuan quickly walked over and took the telegram machine and lunchbox from Xiaoxi's hands as he said with concern, Thank you, young master. Oh, right, where's Sanbao? Xiaoxi wiped the sweat off her face and asked, Sanbao is too tired. She's resting now. I was careless today and made the two of you suffer. Xiaoxi, quickly go back and rest. Li Zixuan said with some self-blame. Xiaoxi could hear the concern in his words and smiled. Young master, Xiaoxi is fine. It's already so hot and you're still fine? Come, follow me back to the house. Li Zixuan knocked on Xiaoxi's forehead and pulled her back into the house. Young master, this telegraph machine you made is really amazing. Xiaoxi could hear the message you sent in the workshop even though she was so far away. Also, this thing can make sounds on its own. It's amazing. After returning to the house, Xiaoxi drank a few mouthfuls of water with ice cubes. After a while, she calmed down and stood up to look at Li Zixuan excitedly. Previously, she accompanied Li Zixuan to do so many experiments, but they all ended in failure. Today, after finally succeeding, she saw how amazing this thing was. Li Zixuan looked at the excited look on the little girl's face and smiled as he shook his head and said, Hee, this is only the beginning. This telegraph machine that I invented, if it's improved, it can transmit messages even if it's 1,000 miles away. Wow, 1,000 miles away? Doesn't that mean that it can be transmitted from the north to the south of Tang Dynasty? Young master, is what you said true? Xiaoxi stared with her beautiful eyes and said in surprise, Of course it's true. All right, let's not talk about it anymore. Let's eat first. After lunch, Xiaoxi, you go and rest. I'll find 2 other people to continue the experiment. You and Sanbao have worked hard this morning. Li Zixuan said as he opened the lunchbox and took the food out. Xiaoxi saw this and quickly came over to help. Young master, let me do it. As Xiaoxi helped to take the food, she looked at Li Zixuan with a pleading look and said, Young master, Xiaoxi is actually not tired. We can continue the experiment in the afternoon. To be honest, the little maid was now very interested in the telegraph machine that would occasionally make DDD sounds. If he did not let her follow along, she would feel a little uncomfortable. This was a beautiful girl who was addicted to doing experiments. You're already so tanned, and you're still not tired? Be careful that you won't be able to get married if you get tanned. Li Zixuan was not willing to let Xiaoxi go out in the afternoon. It was not as if there was no one outside that he could order around. Why must he let a little girl go out and suffer? In the morning, he was bewitched and could not extricate himself. Now that he had woken up, he was not willing to let Xiaoxi go out again. Young master, when Xiaoxi heard this, her face instantly flushed red. Haha, pretend that I didn't say anything pretend that I didn't say anything. Old master, what do you think little Xian has been doing these few days? This child can finally rest for a few days, but he doesn't know how to rest at home. Instead, he insists on going to the workshop for a few days. He is really worrisome. Li residence. After Madame Li finished eating, she complained to Li Jingma, who was beside her. She said so much, but it was all secondary. The most important thing was that she did not see her son at home these few days and felt empty in her heart. How could Li Jingma not know his wife's thoughts? But he also did not know what Li Zishuan was doing at the workshop recently. Li Zishuan was getting more and more capable. How could he report everything to him in advance? He could only smile bitterly and say, "Madam, little Xian has grown up. He will have things he wants to do." Furthermore, his workshop is not far from home. Isn't little Xian still by our side? If Madam wants to take a look, your husband can accompany you to the workshop. Anyway, this carriage at home is quite comfortable. Although Li Jingma's words were obviously meant to comfort her, they were completely useless. Madame Li, on the other hand, accepted his words. Her expression relaxed slightly, and she smiled. "That won't do. Master, you've said it yourself. Xian is doing what he wants to do. If I were to go, wouldn't it affect his progress? Mother, then I will go. Lana, it will not affect brother's progress." Lana, who was beside her, said crisply, "Puffed. You're also not allowed to go. Mother knows you well. If you go, you will definitely cause trouble for your brother." Madame Li touched her daughter's head in amusement and said, "No way. Mother, Lana has always been very obedient." Lana said coquettishly, "Ha! This time, even Li Jingma could not help but laugh. What obedient? Have you done the homework that your brother arranged for you? Previously, you did not like to be a female worker, so mother and your father did not force you. Now that your brother has arranged some homework for you, you're not allowed to slack off." "Oh, it's homework. Lana only has a little left to do. Don't worry, I will do it at night." "You want Iron Egg to do it for you at night, right?" "Hee hee. No." Chapter 282. Your Majesty, I heard from the palace maids that something interesting happened in Chang'an. In the west court of the imperial palace, Li Er came to Empress Zhongxun's place for a meal after the morning court. During the meal, Empress Zhongxun suddenly thought of something and said with a smile, "Oh, what's the matter? Tell me about it, Guanyin." Li Er was thinking about what happened in the morning court. After all, the fleet would set off for the south in 2 days. According to the statistics of the Ministry of War, as of today, the number of merchant ships participating in the South Sea trade had reached 2,300. The scale was really rare in history, so Li Er had to be cautious. Now the Tang Empire was in a critical period of recuperation. There must be no mistakes. Hearing Zhongxun's words, his hand paused for a moment, and then he pretended to be very interested and said with a smile. Zhongxun got up and served Li Er a bowl of soup, and then said, "I heard that today Li Zishuan's little maid was wandering around the area from an Lane to Yongla Lane with a box that could make sounds by itself, which attracted a lot of people." "Oh, what box can make sounds by itself? What the hell is Li Zishuan up to?" Li Er was really interested at this moment, and he asked curiously, "Your Majesty, I don't know about this, but this child often comes up with all kinds of strange ideas. Once he does something, it will definitely surprise people." Zhongxun shook her head and said with a smile. She had deliberately picked a happy topic to talk about because she saw that Li Er had a lot on his mind. It was to distract Li Er. She didn't care about the deeper meaning of this matter. "Zhao Song." Li Er nodded and called out, "Your Majesty, I'm here." Although Zhao Song was far away, his hearing was better than the young people. He immediately ran over when Li Er called him softly. "What is Li Zishuan doing recently? Why is there no news about him after he made the compass a few days ago?" In the harem, Li Er didn't sit upright and look straight as he did in the imperial court. He had already forgotten the Confucian saying of don't talk when eating and don't talk when sleeping. He asked lightly while eating delicious food, "Your Majesty, as far as this old servant knows, Li Xiannan suddenly turned back after leaving the workshop 3 days ago. He hasn't come out for the past 3 days. His maidservant also followed him in later. These days, The maidservant has been going back and forth between the Li Manor and the workshop. She should be delivering food to Li Xianan. Zhao Song cupped his hands and reported. If Li Zishuan were here, he would definitely curse this old eunuch for being a pervert. He actually dared to play surveillance. But Zhao couldn't be blamed. Who asked him to be so interested in Li Zishuan's situation? Zhao Song had been by Li Er's side for so long, so of course he knew how to figure out the emperor's intentions and make preparations in advance. After hearing this, Li Er felt that something was amiss. In his opinion, Li Zishuan didn't seem like someone who could be idle. There must be something fishy going on. Looks like this kid is up to something big recently. I'm sure that the box that the little maid was carrying today was something that Li Zishuan had been fiddling with these few days. It must be something good. This kid hides every time he makes something good. The horse carriage in his house was like this. If Qin Ke hadn't found it at his house, who knows how long he would have hidden it. Li Er raised his eyebrows and said firmly, Your Majesty, why are you so sure? Empress Zhang's son elegantly poured a cup of wine for Li Er and asked curiously, Guanin's servant, you don't know this kid? Li Er raised his wine cup and took a sip of the palace's wine. Drunken immortal. He continued, Previously, this kid used less than half a day to draw the blueprints for the curved plow, horse carriage, and compass. Then, he became a shopkeeper who didn't do anything. This time, he actually locked himself in the workshop for 3 whole days. Moreover, it seems that he might have been personally doing the work for the past 3 days. Don't you think that's strange? I'm sure that this kid is fiddling with something even better. Your Majesty's words are not without reason. Now that you mention it, I'm a little curious. That's great. Guanin's servant, come with me to this kid's workshop in the afternoon. We'll catch him off guard. Lord Zhu, Miss Xiao, she can receive the signal. In the afternoon, Li Zishuan started a new round of testing. However, the person running the errands had changed. It was Pang Feiji, our legendary brother chicken. This guy was really unlucky. When he came to change shifts in the afternoon, he was caught by Li Zishuan to be a strong man. There was no other reason other than that this guy was sturdy. With martial arts, he could run faster and more easily. As for Xiao, this little girl was addicted to doing experiments. However, she was very stubborn. Li Zishuan was helpless and could only think of a compromise. That was to let a martial marquis who came with Pang Feiji drive the horse carriage and send Xiao to a place far away for testing. Good. Move 1 li further away. Li Zishuan was so excited that his voice trembled. Currently, the effective communication range of his wireless telegraph had reached 10 li. This was really out of his expectations. At first, he thought that if this thing couldn't reach far, then he could only use a wired telegraph. However, it was a bit troublesome to set up wires. He didn't expect that it would achieve such a good result. It seemed that the spatial spectrum of the ancient times was still clean and there were no disturbances. Yes. Although Pang Feiji felt bitter in his heart, Brother Chicken couldn't say it out loud. People under the eaves had to lower their heads. Run. I've been in the army for so many years, I don't believe that I can run away unscathed. I heard that a servant almost got a heat stroke in the morning. That's because they're too weak. At this moment, Brother Chicken's heart was filled with a sense of superiority. It was really as if he was flying, as light as a swallow, and as fast as lightning. Young master, Lady Xiao, over there, it's ready. You can send a message. After a few trips, Brother Chicken couldn't take it anymore. So what if he had martial arts? Running back and forth like this, even a grandmaster expert would have to kneel down. Furthermore, he was just a small fry who had just entered the body tempering stage. He couldn't take it. And okay, I'll start sending it here. You can go back. Li Zishuan said lightly. Yes. Brother Chicken put his hands on his waist and replied weakly. Then, he continued on his long journey. After an hour, Brother Chicken finally ran back. Lord Zhu, little Lady Xiao, can hear the signal. After Brother Chicken finished speaking, he didn't care about being rude. He picked up the teapot on the table and poured it into his mouth. He was really too damn thirsty. Li Zixuan frowned when he saw this. It seemed like he couldn't keep this teapot anymore. Why are you so slow? Go and ask Xiao, she to walk another 2 miles away. See if she can still do it? After Brother Chicken finished drinking the water, Li Zixuan said, still running? Lord Ju, I can't run anymore. Brother Chicken's face was bitter. He was about to cry. Why can't you run anymore? You're a soldier with martial arts after all. Don't the soldiers of Wuhou government usually train? Why is their physique so weak? Li Zixuan frowned and said with dissatisfaction, Damn, Brother Chicken really wanted to fight it out with Li Zixuan. But at this moment, a voice filled with majesty sounded. This is my army. You brat. You have the ability to tell me what to do. You grown up. Before the person arrived, the voice came first. Li Zixuan knew that something was wrong when he heard the voice. The wolf is here. With lightning speed, he pulled a piece of cloth and covered the telegraph machine. Then, he took the initiative to greet Li Er and Zhang Sun, who were walking toward him. He saluted with his hands folded and said, Greetings, Your Majesty. Your Majesty. Chapter 283. Greetings to Your Majesty. When Chicken Bro saw Li Zixuan take the initiative to go forward and pay his respects, he was stunned for a moment before he realized who had come. He had been running for more than 2 hours, and his legs were already weak. Now that he heard that Li Er had come, it was even more unbearable. His legs couldn't help but shake, and his words were trembling and stuttering. He was only a small Siggy. When had he ever had the chance to see the Emperor? At this moment, Brother Chicken was both afraid and excited. In rise, Li Er walked over leisurely with Empress Zhang Sun in tow, looking like a loving couple. Imperceptibly, he spread a handful of dog food for Li Zixuan and Brother Chicken. What is Li Sai doing here instead of helping Chancellor Kong to share his burdens in the Directorate? Of course, Li Er couldn't directly say that he had received news that he was causing trouble here and specially came here for a ward round. He naturally pulled Zhang Sun into the room and sat at the head seat. Then he looked at Li Zixuan like an old leader inspecting his work and asked despite knowing the answer. When Li Zixuan heard this, the corner of his mouth twitched. Why am I here? Don't you have any idea? Your Majesty, I accidentally violated the laws of the Imperial Court a few days ago and disturbed public order. Your Majesty was kind and allowed me to reflect at home. Later on, the Imperial Court intended to go south for trade. Your Majesty was kind and temporarily lifted my confinement order, allowing me to concentrate on researching compasses. I will always remember Your Majesty's kindness, and thus work day and night in the workshop to create and improve compasses. Since Li Er pretended to be confused, Li Zixuan could only tell him everything from the beginning. Cough, cough, how shameless. Li Er almost choked to death. He secretly thought that he shouldn't have pretended to be confused and accidentally gave Li Zixuan a chance to be shameless. Oh, we remember now. Wasn't the compass completed a few days ago? Why are you still here? As Li Er spoke, he used his eyes to search around the room, trying to find the legendary big box. However, after looking for a long time, he did not see it and could not help but feel a little depressed. Li Zixuan's room was quite large. It was a compound room with an inner and outer compartment. He had done his experiments in the inner room. Li Er and Zhang Sun were sitting in the outer room, so it was not surprising that they could not see him. Your Majesty, after I finished making the compass, I couldn't fall asleep when I got home, so I came here to sleep. Li Zixuan lied through his teeth. It wasn't easy for him to get this telegraph machine. It was his treasure. He couldn't bear to let Li Er take it away. Was there such a thing? What's your name? Come over and tell me what Li Sai is doing today. Li Er widened his eyes in disbelief. He pointed at Brother Chicken beside him and said, Your Majesty, I am Pang Feiji, Sigu of the Right Marquis household. Li Sai. Li Sai is. When Brother Chicken heard Li Er call him, he was flattered for a moment. However, when he heard Li Er's question, he suddenly felt troubled. He had experienced many things and was a tactful person. Naturally, he could tell that Li Zixuan did not want to expose the telegraph machine. However, Lier forced him to say it. What would he do? One of them was a county magistrate, and the other was the current manager. It was not good to offend either of them. Brother Chicken regretted not running away just now. It was too late to run now. Oof. What? I asked you a question. Is there anything you don't dare to say? Lier saw that Brother Chicken was hemming and hawing. He suddenly became angry. He snorted coldly and said sternly. Lisa Schwan was speechless. Wasn't Lier too ungentlemanly? As a dignified emperor, he actually had the face to make things difficult for a small soldier. He looked at Brother Chicken and wanted to know how this soldier would deal with it. Even if Brother Chicken told the truth, Lisa Schwan would not blame him. There was no love without reason in this world. If you didn't give anything, you naturally couldn't expect others to repay you. Brother Chicken wiped the sweat off his forehead and bowed down. I don't dare. Actually, I also don't. Beep, 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 beep. Yeah. Your Majesty, what's that? At this moment, a rhythmic beep beep came from the telegraph machine in the house. Empress Zhongsun was astonished. She cast her gaze into the house and asked in astonishment. F***K. Lisa Schwan's little heart also trembled along with the beep beep of the telegraph machine. Why didn't this thing sound earlier or later? Why did it have to sound at this moment? This is asking for my life. Eternal Peace Lane. Xiaoxi had actually run all the way to Eternal Peace Lane. The little maid had waited for a long time, but Brother Chicken still hadn't returned. She sat in the carriage and looked at the telegraph machine in her hand in boredom. This thing is so marvelous. I don't know how young Master did it, but he could actually make it speak on its own. Xiaoxi placed the telegraph machine on the table in front of her and flipped it left and right with her hands. She then looked at it curiously, wanting to know why this weird box was so marvelous. Suddenly, a part that was connected to a wire fell out of the box. It was the key that controlled the telegraph machine to send out messages. Xiaoxi immediately jumped in shock and picked it up. Just as she was about to put it back into the box, the scene of Lisa Schwan using the telegraph machine in the laboratory appeared in her mind. Her heart moved, and she thought, since I can receive a message from young Master, if I send a message from here, won't young Master receive it as well? Xiaoxi looked at the telegraph machine, and her eyes kept darting around. She was hesitating whether she should press the button or not. In the end, she couldn't suppress the eagerness in her heart and gently pressed the button on the telegraph machine. The telegraph machine immediately let out a long beep. Hee hee, this is quite fun. It will beep every time I press it. It's a pity that I don't know music. Otherwise, I could use this to play a song for young Master. Xiaoxi had personally experienced the magic of the telegraph machine, and in a moment of playfulness, the telegraph machine began to beep nonstop. However, the young maidservant felt that it was a little imperfect. She thought that it would be great if she could use the telegraph machine to play a song. She was probably the first person who thought of using the radio to compose a song. Now, isn't this the carriage from Xiaoxian's residence? Why did it stop here? The person who came was Yin Xiaoning. Eternal Peace Lane was located at the northwest side of Chang and was closer to the western city and the Imperial Palace. Yin Manor was coincidentally located here. Yin Xiaoning was naturally very familiar with Li Manor's carriage. After he recognized it, he immediately called out, Xiaoxian. Xiaoxian. Young Master Yin? It's you. When Xiaoxi heard this familiar voice, she immediately jumped off the carriage and bowed. Xiaoxi, why is it only you? Yin Xiaoning asked curiously. Young Master Yin, my young master didn't come. I'm here to help my young master with an experiment. What experiment? Oh, why? Does Xiaoxian still need to keep it a secret from me? No, my young master made a telegraph machine and asked me to come out for an experiment. What's a telegraph machine? Let me take a look. Chapter 284. Strange Interest Pavilion Workshop. Lisa Schwan, what else do you have to say now? How dare you deceive me? Tell me, what is it that is making noise in this room? Lier also heard the beeping sound in the room. He instantly remembered the situation that Zhao Song reported to him at noon in the palace, so he pretended to be dignified and pressured Lisa Schwan. He wanted to go in and search, But as an emperor, it was already inappropriate for him to come to the outer room of Li Zixuan's bedroom. How could he enter the inner room? Li Zixuan looked at Lier and didn't know if old Li was really angry or faking it. In terms of acting, he was not old Li's opponent. He said with a guilty conscience, "Your Majesty, I have never deceived you from beginning to end. This is just a small toy that I made to please my fiancée. It is not worth mentioning and is not presentable." "Oh, what kind of thing can please a girl? Can Li Sai take it out and let me see?" Empress Zhang's son chuckled. Alas, Li Zixuan sighed in his heart. It seemed that he had to take it out. He could only hope that Lier had some moral bottom line and wouldn't confiscate his dating tool. "Yes, Your Majesty." Li Zixuan cupped his hands and obediently went in to carry out the pile of devices. He placed it on the table between Lier and Zhang's son. Your Majesty, this is a small toy that I made for my fiancée. What is this thing called? What is its use? Why does it look so ugly?" Zhang's son looked at the strange and ugly machine and frowned in confusion. She didn't think that this thing could please a girl. Lier didn't judge a book by its cover. Well, he judged an object by its cover. After looking at the machine with many wires, he said, "You brat, don't hide it. Tell me the truth. Zhen and the Empress won't snatch your things. Look at your stingy appearance. You're a minister of the Imperial College. If word gets out, you'll embarrass the Imperial Court." He was an astute person. From the moment he entered the room, he had sensed Li Zixuan's strong vigilance. Thinking of this, he felt a little angry for no reason. He was the ruler of a country. Would he snatch something from you? Li Zixuan secretly rolled his eyes. In his heart, he cursed. "How many things have you snatched from me?" The immortal drunken wine had been directly snatched away and taken to the palace as the imperial wine. "Your Majesty, this is a telegraph machine. It's a tool that I use to communicate with my fiancée. It hasn't been completed yet and is still in the testing stage. How can such a small box allow two people to communicate?" When Lier heard Li Zixuan's words, he was in disbelief. Empress Zhang's son also looked over curiously. Your Majesty, this telegraph machine is divided into two parts, the transmitter and the receiver. The transmitter can send out a signal through this key, and the other telegraph machine, dozens of miles away, can receive this signal. The people over there can translate the message sent by the transmitter according to the DD sound. Li Zixuan was stunned by the question. It was not that he didn't know how to explain it, but that he didn't know where to start. The two of them didn't have any foundation in electromagnetism. It was too difficult to completely explain it to them. After thinking about it, he simply introduced the principle. If Lier and Zhang's son didn't understand, then forget it. Of course, Lier didn't understand. He frowned. When Li Zixuan finished, he looked unhappy and said, "Speak human language." Li Zixuan was almost choked to death. He thought for a moment and found that there was no way to explain it clearly in a few words. He could only say, Your Majesty, the principle of this telegraph machine involves a lot of electromagnetism knowledge. I really can't explain it clearly in a short time. However, Your Majesty and Your Majesty only need to know that when I send a beep, beep, beep sound here, another telegraph machine dozens of miles away can also receive the same sound. This is how two people communicate with each other. Dozens of miles? It can be transmitted so far? Lier saw that Li Zixuan wasn't deliberately beating around the bush. He understood that the principle of this telegraph machine really couldn't be explained clearly in a few words. He directly skipped the parts he didn't understand and captured the most important information in Li Zixuan's words. That's indeed the case. After I've tested the telegraph machine, I've found that it can send messages up to at least 11 miles away. And that shouldn't be the limit. Theoretically speaking, if this telegraph machine is perfected to the limit, it can allow two people in any corner of the world to send messages to each other. The process of sending messages can be completed in the blink of an eye. Since the telegraph machine had been taken out, Li Zixuan didn't intend to hide anything. He could also show off in front of Lier. Wasn't it great? If his parents in his previous life knew that he had once shown off in front of the Emperor Tang, they would definitely be very pleased. People anywhere can communicate with each other in the blink of an eye. His. Lier carefully recalled what Lisa Schwann had just said a few times and couldn't help but have a toothache. It was really too shocking. Compared to the methods of communication that people often used in this era, such as relay stations, carrier pigeons, and fire beacons, Lisa Schwann's telegraph transmission had completely subverted everyone's understanding. This empress has one thing that I don't understand. Can Li Xianan solve this problem for this empress? Empress Zhang's son always looked as calm as water. At this time, she looked at Lisa Schwann and asked with a smile, "Empress, please speak. This small official will definitely tell you everything he knows." Compared to Lier, who was a wolf in sheep's clothing, Lisa Schwann preferred to talk to Zhang's son. He felt that Zhang's son was more gentle and virtuous, and her heart was better than Lier's. However, it probably wouldn't take long for Lisa Schwann to understand how stupid his current thinking was. Zhang's son nodded and said, "According to what you said just now, this telegraph machine, regardless of whether it's sending or receiving a message, will make a DDDD sound. However, with just this sound, how can we know what message the other party wants to send?" Lier also reacted and said, "The Empress is right. With just this DDDD sound, how can we send a message?" Lisa Schwann looked at the few eunuchs and palace maids who came in with Lier and Zhang's son. He hesitated for a moment and said solemnly, "This is a confidential matter. Your Majesty and Empress, please dismiss your servants." Lier thought for a moment and waved his hand. "All of you, leave for now. Zhao Song, you stand guard outside. Don't let anyone come near." He saw Lisa Schwann's rare solemnity and realized the seriousness of the matter, so he dismissed his subordinates. "Yes," Zhao Song responded. Brother Chicken heaved a sigh of relief. He didn't want to listen to those secrets here. He followed the eunuchs and palace maids and slipped out together. Chapter 285. Your Majesty, Your Ladyship, if you listen carefully, you will realize that this telegraph machine can actually emit two types of sounds. One is a short sound like this. When the people on the other side receive this signal, they can record it as a dot and read it as D. The other type is a long sound that lasts for a certain period of time. When the people on the other side receive this signal, they can record it as a horizontal line and read it as da. Your Majesty and Your Ladyship can listen carefully. Drunken Wind Pavilion. In order to clearly explain the telegraph machine's communication mechanism to Lier and Zhang's son, Lisa Schwann explained the principle while personally operating the telegraph machine. In fact, the principle was very simple. It was nothing more than controlling the telegraph machine to emit two different types of signals based on the length of time the switch was closed. And that's indeed the case. But with just these, I'm afraid they can't transmit the message, right? When Lier saw Lisa Schwann's demonstration, he was amazed by the telegraph machine's magic and asked doubtfully, "Your Majesty, with just these two monotonous signals, of course, it can't completely express the meaning of both parties. This telegraph machine also needs to be used in conjunction with a codebook." Lisa Schwann explained with a smile. "What's a codebook? Kid, can't you say it all at once?" Lier frowned and said unhappily. This kid dared to deliberately use a bridge in front of him. He was really bold. Replying, "Your Majesty, I just said that the two types of signals emitted by the telegraph machine can be recorded as dots and horizontal lines. I later combined the dots and horizontal lines, and each combination represents a number. For example, a dot with 4 horizontal lines represents the number 1, and the rest of the numbers so on. There are a total of 10 numbers, and then the sender can combine the 4 numbers to represent a word. In this way, there are 10,000 combinations. In other words, through this method, it is possible to express 10,000 different words. And the corresponding text of each combination is the codebook that I mentioned." Lisa Schwann stood with his hands behind his back and spoke with a little bit of confidence. This guy thought that since it was a rare opportunity to show off in front of Lier, it would be a waste not to show off. In fact, what he had just said was the famous Morse code in the modern history of the world. In 1832, The Russian diplomat Schilling built a machine for receiving messages by means of the deflection of a galvanometer pointer. Later, in 1835, after 3 years of research, the American painter Morse successfully used the on and off and length of electric current to replace human words for transmission. Morse code was an early form of digital communication, but unlike modern binary codes that use only zeros and 1 or 2 states, it consisted of 5 types. That's dashes, pauses between dots and dashes, short pauses between each character, between dots and dashes, medium pauses between words, and long pauses between sentences. Then, using different combinations of dots and dashes, representing 26 English letters and 10 Arabic numerals, the communication could be achieved perfectly. One interesting thing was that the International Distress Signal SOS was not an abbreviation of any English word. It was just that its code was 3 dots, 3 long, 3 dots. In Morse code, the corresponding letter was SOS. Later, Morse code was introduced to China. In order to adapt to the Chinese language, it was modified. It was almost like what Li Zixuan just said, but there were a few more combinations on the original basis. Li Zixuan was frowning and thinking, so he didn't notice Li Zixuan's annoying look. Otherwise, he would have given him 2 big feet. Emperor Zhang's son inadvertently glanced at Li Zixuan's expression, and she couldn't help but want to laugh. I see. Kid, your idea is really good, but according to what you said, the codebook can be changed at will? Lier himself was a person with great wisdom. Putting aside the knowledge of electromagnetism that didn't belong to this era, he could still understand the principles of the combination of codes. Your Majesty's eyes are really sharp. Just as Your Majesty said, this codebook can be changed according to needs. As long as both parties use the same codebook, there's no problem. It is precisely due to the ever-changing nature of the telegram code that guarantees the safety of the message between the 2 parties. This way, even if the message is intercepted, the other party won't be able to understand the meaning of the message just by looking at the dots and strokes. When Li Zixuan heard Lier's question, his eyes lit up. He secretly thought that the ancient people weren't stupid. He just had more knowledge than them. Huh, don't flatter me, kid. Oh, according to what you said just now, could it be that the message sent by this telegraph can be intercepted by others? Lier was secretly happy, but on the surface, he laughed and scolded. However, he was a little puzzled. In his opinion, the message sent by this telegraph was silent and invisible. How could it be intercepted? Your Majesty, the message sent by the telegraph is actually equivalent to the military messenger sending military intelligence through text. They both have the possibility of being intercepted. As long as you have a high-power transceiver and adjust the receiving frequency of this transceiver to the corresponding waveband, you can capture the telegraph message sent by others. Of course, this is only in theory. This is because in the whole world, I am the only one who is proficient in the production principle of the telegraph. Nothing was invincible. Although the electromagnetic waves emitted by the telegraph were invisible and silent, as long as the method was right, it could still be captured. In some anti-Japanese war TV series, there were often plots of underground parties intercepting and deciphering the enemy's telegrams. In the military, Lier's heart skipped a beat as he muttered to himself. Although he didn't know what power, frequency, and waveband were, this didn't prevent him from obtaining other key information. At this time, he looked at the telegraph on the table again, and his eyes slowly became more and more passionate. This was the divine weapon of the country. With this telegraph, wouldn't the Tang Empire be in an invincible position in future wars? He had fought in wars all his life, and he immediately thought of the huge role this telegraph would play in the military. You just said that in the whole world, you're the only one who is proficient in the production principle of the telegraph. Lier narrowed his eyes and looked at Li Zixuan as he spoke. Li Zixuan's heart tightened. He felt a trace of danger. Did he just show off too much? Your Majesty, it should be like this. Li Zixuan couldn't hear anything wrong from Lier's tone, so he could only bite the bullet and answer. Can this telegraph be mass-produced? Can it be used for the transmission of intelligence in the military? Lier's face didn't have any special expression, but there was a trace of hope in his heart. This, Li Zixuan wanted a curse in his heart. Sure enough, Old Li wanted all the good things that he saw. What a robber! Your Majesty, the telegraph is currently only in the experimental stage. Its transmission distance and working time are not stable. I can use it to chat with you, Shi, but if it is used for the transmission of intelligence in the military, we first need to solve the problem of its power supply, and then the problem of its signal transmission distance. Chat? You're actually planning to use this telegraph to chat? Before Li Zixuan could finish, Li Er couldn't help but interrupt. Li Er's eyes were wide open, and he looked like he wanted to eat someone. If it wasn't for Zhang Sun beside him, he would have pulled out his sword and chopped Li Zixuan into pieces and fed him to the dogs. Your Majesty, Li Zixuan cursed in his heart. In a moment of desperation, he spilled the beans. This was a pill. The robber was going to eat someone. Chapter 286. Li Er still left in the end. After knowing that the telegraph machine was still defective, he naturally didn't borrow the telegraph machine on the table. But before he left a ruthless sentence. As long as the telegraph machine can't be used in the army, you will never be able to rise in the ranks of the nobility. Li Zixuan pointed his middle finger at Li Er's back. King of a country? You don't even keep your words. Last time, you said that you would give me a promotion after the merchant ship came back. How many days has it been? You changed your mind again. Of course, he only dared to complain in his heart. He wouldn't dare to say in front of Li Er, even if he had two guts. You can say that he's a coward, but if you're not a coward, you can come up and try. Let's see if your neck is harder than Li Er's knife. Young Master, I'm back. Young Master Yin is here too. At this moment, Xiaoxi's voice came from outside the door. Li Zixuan was stunned. After being interrupted by Li Er, he almost forgot that he was testing the telegraph machine just now. He had accidentally made Xiaoxi wait there for so long. But luckily this girl ran back on her own. Xiaoxi, go in and rest. Yo, Brother Xiaoning, why are you here? Li Zixuan stood up and walked to the door. He looked at the two of them and smiled. Yes, young master. Xiaoxi will get you some water. Xiaoxi answered, carried the big box, and ran in. Hey, Xiaoxian, you still have the nerve to say that? You caught me to be your coolie when you need me. But when you don't need me, you threw me to the back of your mind and didn't care about me. If I didn't come today, I'm afraid you would have already forgotten about me, right? Yin Xiaoning pointed at Li Zixuan and scolded him half-jokingly. Li Zixuan was embarrassed. He thought carefully and realized that he was really as heartless as Yin Xiaoning said just now. Damn, that's not right. You're not a girl. How can you be heartless? Li Zixuan reacted and shuddered. Could it be that Yin Xiaoning had taken a fancy to him? Otherwise, why would she act like a resentful woman? Cough, cough. Brother Xiaoning, what are you talking about? As the saying goes, if you have a bosom friend in the sea, you can be as close as a neighbor from afar. Between friends, as long as we know each other, why should we care about the distance between us? If there's a bosom friend in the sea, the distance of the world will be as close as neighbors? Good poem. Good poem. But who wrote this poem? Why haven't I heard of it before? While Li Zixuan was trying to pull the tiger's skin, he accidentally pulled the tiger that hadn't been born yet. Wang Bo would be born more than 20 years later. Wang Rinbiao was dumbfounded. This is a poem that I came up with when I was bored. It's not worth mentioning. Not worth mentioning at all. Brother Xiaoning, please come in and have a seat. Li Zixuan actually realized that something was wrong when he said those two lines of the poem. At this moment, he could only thicken his skin and admit that he wrote it. Then, he cleverly changed the topic. Brother Xiaoning, what brings you here today? In the hall, the two of them sat down, and Li Zixuan asked with a smile. I met Miss Xiaoxi in the street in the afternoon. Only then did I know that Xiaoxian has been busy with this telegraph machine. I studied it for half a day, but I still couldn't understand the mystery behind it. So, I came here to ask for advice. Yin Xiaoning saw that Li Zixuan didn't seem to be willing to talk about the two lines of the poem, so he didn't ask anymore. Although he knew a little about poetry, he still liked the way of mechanisms and machinery the most. Thus, He went straight to the point and told Li Zixuan his purpose. Oh! Li Zixuan nodded in realization. When Yin shouting was here, the telegraph machine suddenly made a noise. It seemed like it was caused by Yin shouting when he was studying the telegraph machine. The tragic Yin shouting unknowingly took the blame for it. It's not that I don't want to talk about it, but the internal principle of this telegraph machine is very complicated. It involves a few profound knowledge. If Brother Shouting doesn't have the foundation, you won't understand even if I explain it to you for a day. Just now, Li Er insisted on listening to the principle of the telegraph machine. He wasted so much time talking, but Li Er probably only understood about 30% to 40%. If he explained it again at this time, first of all, he wouldn't be able to stand it. Secondly, Yin Shouting would definitely not understand it like Li Er. What's worse was that even if Li Er didn't understand, he wouldn't ask you to get to the bottom of it. After all, he was the ruler of country. There is no need to understand everything so clearly. He only needed to know the general idea. But Yin Shouting was different. If this guy didn't understand something, he would ask until he broke down. What knowledge? Yin Shouting asked unwillingly. Electricity, magnetic field, and advanced mathematics. Yin Shouting. At hashtag at. Ahem, I told you that you haven't heard of it, right? So I'll slowly explain the internal principle of this telegraph machine to you when I have the chance in the future. Then Xiao Xian, where did you learn these knowledge? Of course I learned it from my master. Brother Shouting, you should know that my master learned a lot when he was alive. The three knowledge that I just mentioned are just a drop in the ocean of the knowledge that my master was good at. Yin Shouting was a little annoyed in his heart. I know. What the hell do I know? Your master used to be so mysterious. How many people in the world know about him? However, when he heard the second half of Li Zixuan's words, he couldn't help but be slightly shocked. Sure enough, there's always someone better than you. Yin Shouting sat on the stool and hesitated for a long time. Finally, he gritted his teeth, stood up, and bowed deeply to Li Zixuan. Xiao Xian, to tell you the truth, I'm very interested in the telegraph machine that you made. I always feel that this thing is full of mysteries, as if it doesn't belong to the human world. I feel that a door of new knowledge is opening for me. Only by stepping into it can I experience a more wonderful world. If I don't understand the principle of this telegraph machine, I'm afraid that I won't be able to eat or sleep in peace. Xiao Xian, if your master's knowledge can't be spread to outsiders, I, Yin Shouting, am willing to treat you as my master. I only hope that you can peek into this door. Don't. Li Zixuan was shocked and quickly went forward to help Yin Shouting up. He underestimated Yin Shouting's dedication to new knowledge. If this guy was in the modern world, he would be an engineering expert. He was already addicted to new technology and couldn't extricate himself. Brother Shouting, you misunderstood me. My master doesn't have any rule that knowledge can't be spread to outsiders. On the contrary, my master is very willing to spread his knowledge to the world. It's just that he doesn't care about fame and fortune, so he doesn't want to do it. If Brother Shouting wants to learn these knowledge, I'll take some time to sort out a few books and give them to you in the future. Hee. Thank you very much. Yin Shouting heaved a sigh of relief. He had no choice just now. He also felt a little embarrassed to have his brother as his master. All right, Xiao Xian, aren't you working at the Imperial College now? Why didn't you think of teaching your knowledge to the students? When the time comes, I can also go and listen to it. Yin Shouting suddenly remembered Li Zixuan's current identity and asked doubtfully. Cough, about that. I'm only teaching mathematics at the Imperial College now. How can I teach other knowledge? If other professors see it, I'm afraid it won't be good. If you ask me, I'll say it. Xiao Xian, you can totally start your own school. How can those classics and articles taught by the Imperial College be more practical than your knowledge? Li Zixuan rolled his eyes and thought to himself, Brother, you really think highly of me. Chapter 287. Sigh, it seems like I can only continue testing this telegraph machine tomorrow, but it shouldn't be a big problem. I will be able to have a good chat with Yushi by then. After sending Yin Shouting off, Li Zixuan looked at the sky and thought regretfully. Young master, are you still staying in the workshop today? I heard that old madam misses you. Xiaoxi asked Li Zixuan after cleaning up the teacups on the table. Actually, she didn't want her young master to return home so soon because she spent more time alone with Li Zixuan here. However, Xiaoxi had always been by Madame Li's side, so she didn't want to see Madame Li unhappy. Oh, my mother! Li Zixuan was stunned. He thought for a while and said, All right, since the telegraph machine is almost done, let's pack up and go back today. Judging from today's test results, this first telegraph machine should be able to satisfy the communication needs between him and Han Yushi. This was because the distance between the Li residence and the Han village was about 20 miles. However, that was only the distance. In terms of the straight line distance, it was only about 15 miles. The furthest effective distance in today's test was 11 miles. If nothing went wrong, this telegraph machine should be able to meet the standards. As for Li Er's excessive request, let's talk about it later. Please wait for a moment, young master. Xiaoxi will go pack up now. Okay, go ahead. I will move the telegraph machine to the carriage. Li Zixuan responded and quickly went into the house to move the telegraph machine. After the two of them finished packing, Li Zixuan asked Song Xiaoxi to drive the carriage to Yongla Lane. As for Sanbao, she had already been sent back to the Li residence. After a while, they reached home. The servants came to help them move the things. Li Zixuan thought for a while and decided to go to the east courtyard to greet his mother. After all, he had been away from home for so many days. However, he was stopped by the gatekeeper, Afu. Young master, old master is in the front hall. A teacher from the Imperial College just came to our house. Oh, which teacher? Li Zixuan paused and asked. Replying, young master, I don't know about this, but it seems that this person should be very familiar with master. Fu scratched his head and said, Could it be Su Hongji? When Li Zixuan heard what Su Hongji said, he came to his senses and wondered why Su Hongji was at their house instead of attending class. Oh, okay, I got it. You can leave now. Li Zixuan waved his hand and rushed to the front hall. Walking into the main hall, Li Zixuan took a closer look and saw that it was indeed Su Hongji. Dad, your son is back. Hey, Mr. Su, you're here too. Li Zixuan greeted the two of them with a smile. Huh, you brat, you still know to come back. Remember to talk to your mother later. She misses you a lot. Li Jingma's eyes flashed with a hint of pleasant surprise. He pointed at Li Zixuan and scolded with a smile. Yes, father. I'll go in a while. Li Zixuan felt a warmth in his heart. This was family. This was the feeling of home. No matter how far you were from home, there would always be someone missing you. Heh, now that the telegraph machine has been made, I'll stay at home and accompany my parents in the future. As for Li Er's request to further promote the use of the telegraph machine in the military, to hell with it. Whoever wants to research it can do it. If they don't give me a promotion, I don't care. Almost instantly, Li Zixuan made a decision. Li Sai, I'm here to look for you today, but when I arrived at the Li residence, I found out that you weren't at home. I was going to look for you at the workshop later, but I didn't expect you to come back so coincidentally. Su Hongji stood up and cupped his hands as he spoke politely. He was convinced from the bottom of his heart by Li Zixuan's attainments in mathematics. Haha, Mr. Su, don't be so polite. Have a seat. May I know why Mr. Su is looking for me today? Could it be that there are students from the school who are disobedient? If that's the case, just tell me. I'll deal with them myself. Li Zixuan's first reaction was that there were mischievous people in the school who were causing trouble when he wasn't around. After all, the children of the officials weren't easy to deal with. No. Su Hongji's face darkened. He quickly waved his hands and said, I'm here today to remind Li Sai that your confinement period is coming to an end. You have to remember to return to the Imperial College in time to give a lecture. Su Hongji wasn't in the Imperial Court, so he didn't know that Li Zixuan's confinement order had been temporarily lifted a few days ago. Otherwise, he would have come over long ago. 7 days are going to end so soon. Li Zixuan was a little dumbfounded. He thought that he could have a happy holiday in these 7 days, but because of Li Eru, he had been busy for 4 to 5 days. It was so King miserable. Su Hongji almost vomited blood when he heard that. Someone actually thought that the confinement period was too short. Cough, cough, don't fool around. Speak properly to Mr. Su. Li Jingma was drinking tea. When he heard that, he immediately choked. He glared at his son fiercely and said unhappily, "Okay, Dad." Li Zixuan murmured. Li Sai, according to the previous arrangement, the monthly examination of the school should be the day after tomorrow. I wonder if you've prepared the questions in advance. When Su Hongji saw Li Zixuan's unruly character, he felt that it was necessary to ask him personally so that he wouldn't be fooled when the time came. The questions. I prepare the questions. Mr. Su, don't worry. There won't be any accidents when the time comes. It just so happens that my confinement period will be over the day after tomorrow. I'll personally invigilate the examination then. Li Zixuan panicked when he heard Su Hongji's question. Only then did he realize that there was such a matter. He felt that two pairs of eyes were staring at him covetously, so he hurriedly made up a story. As for whether the questions were actually out or not, only he knew in his heart. Su Hongji looked at Li Zixuan suspiciously, but he didn't say anything. Anyway, no matter what the truth was, he had already reminded Li Zixuan. It wasn't his fault that there wasn't a test paper during the examination. If that's the case, this old man will take his leave. Brother Jingma, take care. Su Hongji paused and cupped his hands to bid farewell to Li Jingma and his son. Take care, Mr. Su. After sending Su Hongji off, Li Zixuan obediently went to greet his mother. Mrs. Li inevitably pulled her son and nagged him for a long time, saying things like, "I haven't seen you for a few days and you've suffered again, you've become haggard," and so on. Although Li Zixuan was touched, he couldn't resist the fierce attack of a mother's love. He found an excuse and took the opportunity to escape. After dinner, Li Zixuan went straight to his study in the west courtyard and began to bitterly make up for his homework. If Su Hongji didn't remind him today, he would have forgotten about the monthly examination the day after tomorrow. Although he could fool Su Hongji for a while, he couldn't fool him forever. It was a test paper, so he still had to write it. Li Zixuan knew this in his heart. Moreover, he himself also valued the first monthly examination very much. Chapter 288. Around 5 o'clock, Ganlu Palace. After Li Er finished his dinner at Empress Zhongxuan's place, he moved here and continued to work overtime. As the emperor, Li Er's daily life was actually much more bitter than Li Zixuan's. For him, working overtime was a common occurrence. The hall was very quiet. From time to time, a cool breeze of the summer night would blow in, causing the candlelight on the wall to sway. Occasionally, the sound of crickets could be heard from outside the hall, as if singing a song of praise for this peaceful night. About an hour later, Li Er finished reading the last memorial. He let out a sigh of relief and leaned against the dragon, thrown a little tiredly. Then, he cast his gaze toward the candles in the palace, lost in thought for a while. He was thinking about the telegraph machine he saw in the afternoon in the workshop of the interesting pavilion. To be honest, before today, Li Er thought that only immortals would have a tool like the telegraph that could transmit messages from dozens of miles away. But today, not only did he see it with his own eyes, but the creator of this divine tool was only a 14 or 15-year-old boy. This really subverted Li Er's understanding of the world. On the way back, although Li Er's expression didn't change, his heart was surging with waves, and it was difficult for him to calm down. Of course, this is only in theory. There is a possibility of being intercepted because in the world, only I am proficient in the production of the telegraph machine. Li Zixuan's words in the afternoon kept echoing in Li Er's mind. Arrogant. Without a doubt, this sentence revealed arrogance everywhere. But he had the qualifications to be arrogant. Previously, when Li Yuan was only the Duke of Tang, Li Er was the second son of the Duke's family. Not only did he have a famous teacher to teach him martial arts, but he also had a certain level of accomplishment in literature. Thus, in the early days, Li Er could be said to be both versed in literature and martial arts. Although he didn't read more than 10,000 books, his knowledge was definitely not ordinary, especially at the end of the Sui dynasty. Li Er followed Li Yuan to start a rebellion in Taiyuan and swept through the world like a hot knife through butter, finally settling in the Central Plains. Now that he had ascended the throne, his status changed again and again, rising step by step. Correspondingly, his experience and knowledge became more and more extensive. Even so, he had never seen such a thing as a telegraph machine. As for the set of principles of the telegraph machine that Li Zishuan explained, he had never heard of it. He was very sure that the knowledge that Li Zishuan spoke of had never appeared in the world. Spiritual Master's martial arts is extraordinarily high, and his medical skills are the best in the world. His knowledge is actually so profound. Does such a person really exist in the world? At this moment, Li Er had a trace of curiosity, or perhaps suspicion, towards spiritual master Ling Su, whom he had never seen with his own eyes and only heard of by word of mouth. Could it be that he doesn't belong to the world? Then doesn't the knowledge that Li Zishuan displayed come from immortals? Li Er let his imagination run wild and couldn't think of a reason. After a moment, he suddenly ordered, "Summon the Prince of Wei." Those who had more contact with Li Zishuan and were more familiar with his knowledge, Li Tai could be considered to be on the list. Li Er decided to ask Li Tai properly. Previously, the scooter, the plow, the paper machine, and the compass were still fine. Although the structure of these things was ingenious, they were still within the scope of Li Er's knowledge. However, the telegraph machine that Li Zishuan made this time was really too mysterious. Yes, it was mysterious, as if this thing didn't belong to this world. It was for this reason that Li Er decided to ask properly. "Your son greets Imperial Father." After about half an hour, the chubby Li Tai arrived at the Sweet Dew Hall. This couldn't be blamed on him. Among the adult princes, Li Tai was an exception. Li Er specifically allowed him to build a residence in Chang'an. This treatment was almost as good as that of Crown Prince Li Changxian. There was still some distance between the Prince of Wei's residence and the palace. At this time, all the gates of the palace were closed. Although the imperial eunuch had Li Er's warrant and could bring Li Tai into the palace unimpeded, it would still take a lot of time to sit in a hanging basket and climb over the palace walls. "Rise. Come, give him seat." Li Er couldn't help but feel happy when he saw his chubby son. He had always doted on Li Tai. Apart from Li Tai's intelligence, it might also have something to do with Li Tai's comical body shape. "Thank you, Imperial Father." Although Li Tai didn't know why Li Er had called him over so late at night, he was confident that he hadn't done anything out of line recently, so he naturally didn't feel guilty. "Qingke, we called you here so late at night because we have a matter to ask you." Li Er waved his hand, indicating for the palace maids and eunuchs to withdraw. The father and son exchanged conventional greetings for a while before Li Er got straight to the point. "Imperial Father, please speak. Your son will definitely tell you everything he knows." Qingke, counting the days, it's almost been a month since you started attending classes at the Imperial College. We also heard that your results in the School of Mathematics have always been among the best. We are very comforted. Today we want to ask you, Qingke, how much do you know about Li Zishuan? When speaking of Li Tai's results, Li Er's face glowed with pride. When his son's results were good, his father would indeed be happy. Even as the emperor, Li Er was no exception. Hearing Li Er's question, Li Tai couldn't help but frown. He didn't know the deeper meaning behind Li Er's question, so he thought for a long time before replying. "Imperial Father, the more time this son has spent with Sir Li, the more I feel that Sir's knowledge is as vast as the sea. Just speaking of mathematics, this son dares to say that no one in the world can beat him in this aspect. The concepts and methods he proposed are things that this son couldn't find even after searching through all the ancient books. In terms of mathematics, Sir Li should be a school of his own. Moreover, using his theories, one can often solve problems faster and more accurately." At this point, even the proud Li Tai couldn't help but reveal a trace of admiration on his face. This subtle expression was naturally caught by Li Er, and he couldn't help but feel a trace of surprise in his heart. Then what about outside of mathematics? Have you ever heard of Chinke? Outside of mathematics? Li Tai looked curiously at Lier, seeming to understand something. If we're to talk about Sir Li's knowledge outside of mathematics, this son's deepest impression would be the hypothesis of the nature of the Earth that Sir Li explained to us when we were making the compass. Oh, the nature of the Earth? What is the nature of the Earth? Chinke, tell me quickly. Lier couldn't help but ask curiously, replying to Father, in order to explain to us why the compass can point us in the right direction. Mr. Li once said that the ground under our feet is a sphere, and this sphere itself is a huge magnet. Li Tai slowly recounted the scene of that day. Lier listened attentively to this magical theory that was like a fantasy story, and a shock in his heart grew stronger and stronger. Chapter 289. The Earth is actually a sphere, and it's magnetic? In the sweet nectar hall, Li Tai finished recounting everything that had happened when he made the compass. Lier's expression became somewhat complicated, and after a long time, he couldn't help but mutter to himself. These novel theories might sound absurd at first, but behind each theory, there was a strong argument supporting it, making it impossible to refute. It was precisely because of this that Lier was silent for a long time after listening to it. Chinke, it seems that you already believe in Li Zishuan's theories. Lier turned around and asked softly. Li Tai had been sitting quietly below. Even though Lier had been deep in thought for a long time, he didn't show any impatience, nor did he make any sound. Now that he heard Lier's question, he hurriedly replied, "Indeed, Mr. Li's theories are not empty words. There is a strong evidence behind them. Your son also participated in one of the small experiments that day. The facts are right in front of your son's eyes. Your son has no choice but to believe it." Li Tai paused, then continued. Your son used to be conceited about his innate intelligence and erudite knowledge. Unavoidably, your son was a little arrogant because of his talents. Ever since I met Mr. Li, your son has learned that there is always someone better than you. In front of the curious pavilion, Mr. Li's inexplicable 10 questions completely destroyed your son. Later on, your son entered the school of mathematics. Originally, your son had some thoughts of competing with you. But as your son's understanding deepened, I was convinced by Mr.'s vast and profound knowledge. A new door opened to your son. After your son entered, your son discovered that mathematics could actually be so exciting, interesting, and novel. It wasn't until a few days ago that your son understood that mathematics was only the tip of the iceberg of Mr. Li's expertise. Physics, chemistry, these are things that your son had never heard of before, but Mr. Li was able to easily grasp them. Your son's previous thoughts of competing with you have long disappeared without a trace. Compared to 2 months ago, Li Tai was indeed much more stable and sunny. He, who was focused on his studies, had even faintly forgotten that he had to compete with Li Changxian for favor. Li Tai looked at his son. In such a short period of time, he had changed so much. For a moment, he felt a little emotional. After mulling over what Li Tai had just said, he suddenly asked, "Chemistry? What is chemistry?" "Chinke, you haven't mentioned chemistry before, have you?" "Yeah." Li Tai was a little dumbfounded. He accidentally spilled the beans. He had promised Li Zishuan that he would not spread the principle of making glass. What should he do now? What? Is there something else you need to hide from me? Li Tai was shrewd. He immediately saw the hesitation in Li Tai's eyes. Hesitation at this time was equivalent to preparing to lie. Lier was a little dissatisfied. Among his sons, Li Tai was the one he doted on the most. He did not expect that his favorite son would want to lie to him now. No. Replying to Imperial Father, the teacher said before that the so-called chemistry is the study of changes. It is a knowledge that studies the changes of substances. Under certain conditions, several substances can react with each other and form a new substance. This is the definition of chemistry and also the use of chemistry. When Li Tai saw Lier's gaze, he panicked and hurriedly blurted out, "The study of changes? This sounds interesting." Lier held his chin and smiled, then asked, "Why did Li Zishuan mention this knowledge to you? Could it be that this kid has created something new?" Li Tai's heart sank. Sure enough, things were developing in the direction he did not want to see the most. However, in this situation, there was no time for him to think. The little fatty could only bite the bullet and say, replying to Imperial Father, previously the teacher felt that the Hum merchant's glass was turbid and expensive, so he made his own glass. The knowledge he used was chemistry. What? Lier suddenly stood up. He was shocked and angry. How could he not be shocked that Li Zishuan could make something like glass that was so profitable? Previously, the Imperial Court had commissioned the workshop of the Curious Pavilion to make compasses. Li Zishuan had asked for a high price because it contained glass. At that time, he thought about it and agreed. However, now that Li Zishuan could make his own glass, the cost of the compasses would definitely be much cheaper. Thinking of this, how could Lier not be angry? 2 days ago, Li Shaogong had excitedly ran into the palace to tell him that the compasses bought from the workshop of the Curious Pavilion were of better quality, especially the glass that was clearer. At that time, Lier was still wondering if Li Zishuan had found his conscience and specially used good glass for this batch of compasses for the Imperial Court. In the end, he and Li Shaogong had been teased by this kid. Then Qingke, do you know how much the glass Li Zishuan made cost? How exactly was it made? Lier calmed himself down and asked. Replying to Imperial Father, at that time, Mr. only told us the general principle of the process of making colored glaze. He didn't talk about the details. I'm afraid that only a few core members of the workshop know the specific process of making colored glaze. As for the cost of the glass they make, your son does not know, but it should be somewhat cheaper than the glass sold by the Hum merchants, and the quality should be even higher. Li Tai considered his words as he spoke. He knew what Lier was thinking. He was just a little unhappy, so he intentionally did not mention the materials used to make glass. Otherwise, Lier would definitely be even angrier. I didn't think that this kid would be so erudite and talented. He could even make glass. Lier did not hear that the glass was very cheap, so he felt a little better. But after thinking about it for a while, he relaxed. Li Zishuan being able to make glass was only beneficial to the great Tang. The ones who should be worried were the Hum merchants. Li Zishuan earned money with his own ability. As the emperor, why should he care about such details? Imperial Father is right. The longer I stay with teacher, the more I can feel teacher's erudition. Li Tai heaved a sigh of relief and nodded in agreement. Hell, that kid has been up to something recently. Qingke, you probably don't know, right? Lier took a sip of tea and smiled. Oh, did teacher invent something again? Your son has been busy preparing for the monthly examination and did not see teacher. Can Imperial Father tell me a little? Little Fatty's eyes lit up as he hurriedly said. He, other than the mathematics, physics, and chemistry that you mentioned just now, that kid is also proficient in electricity, magnetic fields, and advanced mathematics. The thing he made recently was made based on these few fields of knowledge. Chapter 290. It was already late at night, but the father and son in the sweet nectar palace were chatting more and more happily. Lier described the telegraph machine that he saw in the workshop that afternoon to Li Tai. As for the inner workings, he could only pick the parts that he understood to explain. This way, Li Tai was even more confused as he listened. Correspondingly, he felt that the telegraph machine was even more mysterious. There's actually such a divine item in this world that can allow communication from dozens of miles away. In that case, what's the difference between this telegraph machine and those celestial artifacts? Previously, Lier was amazed by Li Zishuan's theory of the Earth's magnetic field. Now, it was Li Tai's turn to be amazed by the powerful functions of the telegraph machine. The little fatty opened his mouth in shock, his face full of disbelief. Seeing his expression, Lier wanted to laugh. He estimated the time and said, "All right, it's getting late. Qingke, you should go back and rest. As for the telegraph machine, you can slowly study it in the future. All right, then I'll take my leave. Father, you should also rest early." Li Tai came back to his senses and cupped his hands in salute. "Oh, right. Qingke, you said earlier that you were preparing for the monthly exam. I heard that Li Zixuan set a monthly exam reward and punishment system for the School of Mathematics. Qingke, you have to take the exam well this time. Although I'm the emperor, I've never been to the Drunken Immortal restaurant. If you get first place this time, I'll take your mother, a few concubines, Cheng Xian, and your brothers and sisters to the Drunken Immortal restaurant for a meal. This way, even Wei Zheng won't have anything to say. Ha! Li Er stopped Li Tai and laughed. Li Tai was speechless. He couldn't help but mourn for Li Zixuan in his heart. There were probably more than 20 people in their family, right? If they all went to the Drunken Immortal restaurant for a meal, it might even cost more than 1,000 strings of coins. That would be enough for Li Zixuan to eat. Li Tai was speechless and could only flee. Li Er didn't immediately return to the harem to rest. He looked at Li Tai's back, and his gaze became somewhat deep. After a long time, he stood up and sighed. Even Qingke has been subdued by you, kid. The disciple of spiritual master spirit, Su really lives up to his reputation. Mathematics, physics, chemistry, electricity, magnetic fields, advanced mathematics. How many more skills do you have that you haven't shown? Was he planning to establish his own sect and establish his own sect? It seems like a mere directorate is no longer enough for you. Li Er paced back and forth as he pondered for a moment. Suddenly, he burst into laughter and said, "Haha, since you have this ability, I will give you the chance to display it to your heart's content. We would like to see what the great Tang will become 10 years later because of you." Ha! He was not like some conservative emperors who saw new theories and ideas as heresy and wanted to nip them in the bud. As an enterprising emperor, Li Er had a high and radical fighting spirit in his bones. He was happy to see the emergence of new theories. The Confucian school had been dominant for nearly 1,000 years and had gradually become the orthodox school of thought. However, Li Er didn't particularly agree with the Confucian school of thought that emphasized theory over practice. He had once conquered the world on horseback. What he valued was still practicality and efficiency. Yonglane, Li Zixuan racked his brains and finally came up with a set of questions of higher quality. He didn't take the unconventional path like the previous weekly exam. The difficulty of the questions this time wasn't high. It mainly tested the foundation. Of course, there were many small pitfalls in the questions. If one was careless, it was very easy to be tricked. Li Zixuan didn't feel that Li Er was trying to trick him with this monthly exam. After finishing the papers, he washed up and directly lay on the bed and fell into a deep sleep. These few days, in order to invent the telegraph machine, it had really been hard on him. It was really hard for him not to fall asleep when he finally returned home and lay on the familiar bed. Li Zixuan had a dream. In the dream, he was actually chatting with Yushi on QQ. The strange thing was, he didn't feel that anything was wrong in the dream. All kinds of flirtatious words came out, and he was flirting with the girl. Li Zixuan, "Yushi, do you know what a door made of wood is?" Han Yushi, "A wooden door." Li Zixuan, "What about a door made of iron?" Han Yushi, "An iron door." Li Zixuan, "What about the door to happiness?" Han Yushi, "I don't know." Li Zixuan, "Silly, it's us." Han Yushi, "Caret omega caret." Li Zixuan, "Yushi, can you show me the way?" Han Yushi, "The way to where?" Li Zixuan, "In your heart." Han Yushi, "Shy. Young master, Yushi is sleepy. I want to sleep." Li Zixuan, "You want to sleep together so soon? I'm not ready yet. Now I'm so nervous." Han Yushi, "Young master, hee, brother must be dreaming of something delicious. He's still smiling in his sleep." In the morning, Lan Er, who hadn't seen her brother for a few days, sneaked into Li Zixuan's room, intending to wake him up. However, she found that Li Zixuan was still smiling with his eyes closed. He was obviously having a sweet dream. The innocent Lan naturally couldn't tell that Li Zixuan's smile had a trace of wretchedness. The little girl thought that her brother was dreaming of something delicious. Lan tiptoed to the outer room to take a piece of cake and returned to Li Zixuan's bedside. At this moment, Li Zixuan smacked his lips. Lan saw the opportunity and quickly brought the cake to her brother's mouth. Li Zixuan smelled a fragrance in his sleep. He couldn't help but open his mouth and move closer to the source of the fragrance. Hee. Lanner looked at Li Zixuan's silly appearance as he slept and ate the cake at the same time. She couldn't help but laugh loudly. Li Zixuan was awakened by the laughter. Logically speaking, with his martial arts, he should have woken up long ago if someone approached him. However, on one hand, he was now at home, so of course he wasn't vigilant at all. On the other hand, this body of his had been spoiled since he was young. If it wasn't under the care of his parents at home, then it was under the guidance of spiritual master Ling Xiu in the mountains. He had never experienced the life of a vagrant in the Jianghu. Besides, he was only an ordinary student in his previous life, not a killer in the Jianghu. He didn't have the habit of being vigilant at all times. Okay, little Lan, you're being naughty again. See how I'll deal with you. Li Zixuan saw that Lan was laughing so hard that she couldn't straighten her back. He immediately understood what was going on. He unhappily wiped the cake crumbs from the corner of his mouth. Then he picked up his little sister, who didn't manage to escape in time, and threw her on the bed. He took off the little girl's shoes and scratched the soles of her feet. He said fiercely, Do you still dare to tease your brother? He. Don't scratch. Brother, Lanner was wrong. Ha. You know you're wrong? I think you're getting bolder and bolder. Didn't I tell you to knock before entering a room? Why didn't you knock? Ooh, ha, I knocked. Brother, you didn't hear it. Hey, still stubborn. He stopped scratching. I know I'm wrong. Ooh. Chapter 291. After playing with the little girl for a while, Li Zixuan was no longer sleepy. So, he carried Lan, and left the room. Under the care of Xiao He and Xiao Shi, the siblings washed up and went to the front yard to have breakfast. However, they bumped into Sanbao. Hey, Sanbao, are you feeling better? Yes, young master. My body is very strong. I've almost recovered since last night. Sanbao quickly scratched his head and said with a silly smile, Hey, look at what you're capable of. Later, go to Butler Wang to get 3 strings of money as a tip. Thank you for your hard work yesterday. Li Zixuan took a closer look and realized that Sanbao was really fine. He waved his hand and brought Lanner to the front hall. Thank you, young master. Thank you, young master. Sanbao was very surprised and thanked him profusely. When the other servants saw this, they looked at Sanbao enviously. This tip was equivalent to a few months of their salary. In the front hall, the family of 4 was having breakfast happily. Mrs. Li hadn't seen her son for 3 days. Yesterday's dinner and today's breakfast were very sumptuous. They were all Li Zixuan's favorite dishes. Li Zixuan couldn't help but sigh in his heart. If he ate like this every day, it wouldn't take long for him to become a big fat man. By then, Chang'an would have one less handsome man. TSK. Xin, come and drink some mushroom pheasant soup. This pheasant was sent over by your in-laws yesterday. Mrs. Li scooped some soup for her son with a smile. Li Jingma, who was sitting at the side, was naturally left out. Not only that, because Mrs. Li stood up to scoop some soup for him, Mr. Li couldn't even pick up any food. He could only eat the white rice in his bowl silently. Okay, Mom. You shouldn't eat too much for breakfast. Li Zixuan quickly said. Who said that I shouldn't eat too much for breakfast? That's nonsense. Mrs. Li rolled her eyes at her son. Although she said that, she still put down the spoon and sat back down. That's right. Mother, you just said that this pheasant was sent by Han Lijing, but why didn't he come in person? Li Zixuan asked as he ate. Isn't this all because of you? Old man Li, who had been eating silently at the side, said, I heard that Han Li has been busy preparing for your marriage with Han Girl these past few days. At the same time, he often goes to the neighboring Plum Village to check on the situation of the chicken farm there. He's so busy. How could he have the time to come over and deliver pheasants to you? This pheasant was hunted by the Han village's farmer. After he gave it to Han Lijing, he couldn't bear to eat it, so he asked someone to send it over. Oh, I see. Brat, what have you been doing in the workshop recently? Li Jima took a bite and asked. In the past, the Li family had always been particular about not talking while eating. Ever since Li Zixuan returned, he had led the entire Li residence astray. He eats nothing. I was just bored and made some small things to play with. Lisa Schwan explained casually. Brother, what's so fun about it? Lana wants to play with it too. Okay, I'll teach you later. After breakfast, Lisa Schwan didn't forget that he had something important to do today. He called San Bao, Xiao He, Xiao Shi, and Lana over, then took out a telegraph and a few spare batteries. He said to them, send these things to the Han family. I've already put the instructions and code book of the telegraph inside. Xiao Shi, you know more about the telegraph. If Yushi doesn't know how to use it, you can teach her. Yes, young master. Lana, don't run around. Do you understand? I know. Brother is so long-winded. Lisa Schwan couldn't be bothered to banter with her. He looked at San Bao and said, San Bao, ask a few guards to go with you later and protect Mrs. Safety. Lisa Schwan didn't plan to let Lana go with them. However, he couldn't resist the little girl's pestering. Now, he could only arrange a few more people to take care of her. Young master, don't worry. I will definitely not let anything happen to Miss Lana. San Bao patted his chest and promised. His loyalty to Lisa Schwan was unquestionable. He was almost equivalent to Lisa Schwan's #1 henchman. Go quickly. Xiao Shi, remember to send me a telegram when you arrive. Yes, young master. A group of people drove the carriage out of Yongla Lane and went straight to the west gate of Chang'an City. Lisa Schwan estimated that Xiao Shi and the rest wouldn't be able to reach the Han family in less than 2 hours. After all, the road from Chang'an City to the Han family village wasn't wide and flat. It wasn't easy to walk on it. So, he went back to his room to catch up on his sleep. For the past 3 days, he had been working overtime and didn't have much time to rest. Today, he wanted to sleep for the whole morning, but was woken up by Lon. Since the telegram machine was in his room, he would be able to hear Han Yushi's message immediately. Lisa Schwan slipped back to the west courtyard, closed the door and windows, and started to sleep. Eat and sleep, sleep and eat. If old Manly was at home and knew about this, he would probably scold Lisa Schwan for not doing his job properly and being a good-for-nothing. Lisa Schwan laid on the bed and fell into a deep sleep after a while. This speed of falling asleep, no matter who it was, they would have to admit defeat. After an unknown amount of time, there was a sudden intermittent DDD sound. He woke up abruptly and knew that Xiao Shi and the rest had arrived at the Han family village. Lisa Schwan walked quickly to the long table where the telegram machine was placed and started to record the telegram. Perhaps the person who sent the telegram wasn't very familiar with it. So, it took almost 15 minutes for the short message to be sent. Luckily, Han Yushi's side was slow. Lisa Schwan had come into contact with telegrams in his previous life, but this was his first time making one. His speed of recording the code was also very slow. After he finished recording the code, Lisa Schwan flipped open the codebook and started to translate the telegram. His speed was faster because he was the one who wrote the codebook. He couldn't say that he remembered everything, but at least he was very familiar with it. After a while, Lisa Schwan translated the contents of the telegram. Young master, I am Xiao Shi. We have a safe journey and have arrived at young madam's house. Young madam is learning how to use the telegram machine. Just a short 30 words, but there were almost 700 codes. Lisa Schwan sighed in his heart. This telegram machine was still not as convenient as a phone. This is really greedy. You already have a telegram machine. Why do you still need a bicycle? Lisa Schwan laughed and shook his head. He thought for a while, then looked at the code book and sent a telegram. Take care of Lon Air. Don't let her run around. Also, tell Yushi not to rush and learn slowly. I can wait. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.